think Tevez going to Juventus, what a coup that was for me. I mean,
on a head-to-head battle, Atletico Madrid can do more damage to Barcelona than the other way around.
Either he's really blind or he's fixing the match. I can't see it any other way.
I'm trying to get Sir Bob on my side here by saying City will win the Premier League.
It is an upset. You would expect Man United to go and win there.
Over $1 billion was paid in transfer fees between the clubs in Europe.
It's football. It's damn football. Like Ferguson said, football. Bloody marvellous.
Yeah, well, the celebration was, I can't believe I just scored against Mexico. At one point, Parma, I think it's something like 224 players under contract. Well, they're going to throw me out of here, fellas. You're going to get me arrested on your show.
If you're a serious talent, you're going back and you're playing for Santos. You know, you're going back to play for, like in Argentina, for River Plate or Boca Juniors, or you're going to Europe.
He looked like the Ryan Giggs of old. He was more creative than any player on the pitch. He made Mata look stupid. He made Rooney look silly.
Now, the Premier League is the most exciting league out there. I think it's probably the best marketed league without a question.
When you look at the draw for the Champions League, you kind of say, well, all the pieces kind of fell into place for everybody except City.
I am your host, Joe Usello. Sir Bob, Mike Orr, my co-host, Rob Rojas, my trusted co-host, Ben the Machine. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 73 of Low Limit Football. I'm your host, Joe Usello, and glad to be back after a great weekend of football, both in Europe and in the United States, where we had league titles pretty much solidified in all of our leagues. We had some exciting matches in the Copa Libertadores down south in South America, and we had some pretty good MLS action this weekend with Toronto FC actually opening their new BMO Stadium, or their newly renovated BMO Stadium, just not the way they wanted to open it. Since we're talking about Toronto, let me go over to my first co-host. That would be the ever-popular Sir Bob, Mike Orr. Mike, how are you tonight?
Hey Joe, how you doing? Good, thanks.
Good. Glad you made it in, and I know we're going to talk about Toronto FC coming up in a little while, but certainly not the way they wanted to open their stadium, don't you think?
Yeah, disappointing game. A lot of work to go there.
Yeah. You know what though? The season is still young, and I am sticking with them to to take it across the line and still be the champions. I'm still sticking.
Champions.
I'm still sticking to my prediction. That's what I
didn't know you predicted that.
Yeah.
You're way out on a small limb, brother.
I am. But you know what? When it happens at the end of the season and everyone's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe it! What a great season they had! What a comeback!" And everyone can look at me and I'm going to say, "You know what? I had it right." So if I had it wrong, big deal. I had it wrong with about 20 or 19 other teams in the league. No,
so, I'd be happy with just the playoffs, but from your lips to God's ears.
I'm working on it. So. Señor Rojas, ¿cómo está?
Bien, y vos?
Bien. Glad to have you on tonight. We've got some big guests coming on tonight. We're going to open up in about 10 minutes or so with Julien Laurens from France. We're going to talk some French football. Obviously, the big news of the weekend, or really of the week since we were last on the air, is where Paul Pogba's going to. At first, it was PSG, and they had a meeting, and blah, blah, blah. And then now the rumor about City and the whole Pep Guardiola thing. So that's really kind of taken hold of the world. So we're going to talk to Julien about that. And then, doing some French football homework, in preparation to talk to Julien. I had some neat little things. I actually went down, guys. I dug pretty deep. I went into Ligue 2 and started digging. Well, because, it's the end of the season. It's the end of the season in Europe for the most part. All the leagues have maybe, 1 or 2 more matches left. And, we usually look back and say, okay, what teams are we saying goodbye to that are getting relegated, a la QPR or FC Metz, who was relegated over the weekend, and who's coming in? Who are the new fresh faces that are going to try to make a run at the top leagues in Europe this season? So, I did a little homework there before we came on the air, and I found some interesting little facts that I'd like to present to Julien, and talk about that. So we're going to have him on in about, like I said, 10 minutes or so. Then immediately after that, we were able to pre-record an interview with Nico DiBenedetto from Beyond the Pitch. He is one of the 3-man booth. We had Anto on last week. This week we're having Nico on, and we have already efforted Phil DeBruyne to come on for next week and get the BTP trifecta. So hopefully we'll be able to get him on and talk to him. If you haven't had a chance to listen to their show, they are on Monday and Friday at 9 o'clock Eastern on SiriusXM. They also do a Saturday afternoon show on SiriusXM as well. So and they are worth the price of the subscription. So definitely give them a listen. But we're going to have Nico on, and then we're efforting Phil for next week. And then in the 8 o'clock hour, a gentleman that is currently on my television screen and working hard at BeIN Sport. He will be back for the third time. He's only our second 3-time guest, along with Zed Khan from Hound Sport, or Page 2 Sports now. And that is Jeremy St. Louis. Mike, next to you, he's our favorite Canadian, no? Or actually, should I...
Had John mute Joe. Yeah, he's a great Canadian.
I was going to say, shouldn't I ask you, he's a great Canadian, eh?
Hey.
So,
we.
Yeah, well, he's a Winnipeg guy, so we're going to have him on.
Speaking of Winnipeg.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of, his name is Ralph Kruger?
No, that name doesn't ring a bell with me.
Rob?
Nope.
He is the chairman of Southampton Football Club.
Okay.
And until 2013, he was the coach of the Edmonton Oilers.
Ah.
Oh, wow.
And he is a Canadian native from Winnipeg, and he is the man in charge at the very top of Southampton Football Club.
Well, we definitely have to talk about Jeremy about that.
Yeah. I'm gonna leave that one right in your wheelhouse, because that sounds like that one's right up your alley. So, I did not know about that at all. So
I didn't either until I read a big 3-page article on him in the local paper here this weekend, because he's at the World Hockey Championships in Prague right now, and has been flying back and forth between Southampton football games and back to Prague to watch the World Hockey Championships.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And his son is a member of the German national team.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Hockey national team.
Not soccer, hockey. Yeah.
Right.
So, Mike, you know what? Before we kick off our opening thoughts segment, do you want to hit us with the trivia question and make us look dumb again?
All right. I hate adding to it because you guys do a good job of yourself of doing that, but looking dumb, that is.
Yeah.
Which 5 players with 5-letter surnames have scored 100 or more Premier League goals? So 5 players have 5-letter surnames in the history of the Premier League have scored 100 or more Premier League goals.
Oh, my God.
It's you think about it. It's not that hard.
5 players.
You want me to give you one just to set you off on the right track? Okay, Rob's already going, so I'm not going to give you one then.
No, all right, hold on. 5 players.
Yeah, I got one.
With 5-letter.
With 100 goals.
Surnames. And these are all players you're familiar with. Every single one of them.
God. And now I'm sitting here, I'm going Aguero. A-G-U. Nope, not him. Wow, 100 goals, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got one. I got 2 actually now.
Wow.
Don't tell us yet, Rob.
It could be any 5?
I think there is only 5.
There is only 5. Oh, okay.
There's a lot of guys with 5-letter surnames, but they've never scored 100 goals. There's only 5 who've done it.
Okay, so
I'm gonna write down one that I think might be on the list. I'm not sure, but I think he might be on the list.
I think I got one too.
Balotelli, that's not 5 letters.
No. maybe his nickname, but not.
Yeah. But,
yeah, and he's about 96 goals short of 100.
Sure he is.
Oh, my God.
Oh, man. Boy. Wow. I'm going to be
It's
angry.
a good question, but you are familiar with, more than familiar with every player that's on the list.
I'm going to be angry when I get the answers to this one. I have one name written down so far, and I'm just going through the big names. You know, guy like Bale, not enough letters. I don't know that he scored 100 goals anyway, but
And Matt, private message me with the answer. Don't tweet it.
So Matt's already on it. And let me ask you.
I'm sure he is. He's Mr. Trivia, so...
Did Matt get it right?
He did. He hasn't sent it to me yet. I'm just reminding him to private send it to me this week.
Oh, got it. Okay. So, and I've also got notification that Julien will be ready in about 5 minutes. So, let's get off of this for now. I've got it written down here in front of me.
And for sure you know the question, right, Joe?
5 players with 5-letter surnames have scored 100 goals or more in the Premier League in their careers.
Exactly.
Yep. And I have Diego Costa written here, but he hasn't been.
Not yet.
That was from last week, by the way. I still have my notes from last week's.
I doubt he'll ever get to 100.
Who? Diego Costa?
Yeah.
I think he will.
Yeah, I think
in the Premier League, I don't think he's going to get 100 goals.
I think he will. But let's see if he can stay healthy enough. I guess, right?
Yeah, that's a big thing.
That is a major issue for him. And it's been a major issue for him for his career. So. I'll tell you what, let's get off of this because I'm going to we could literally just sit here for 30 minutes and think about it until we come up with it. So I don't want to do that. Because we'll miss our first guest at that point. So
yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to do that. So
I already have 2 names, so yeah, I guess.
And I've only got 1. So,
so maybe you guys have 3.
We might have 3 together.
We might have 3.
Yeah. I just got a second one. Nice. Thank you.
I'll try to get a third one.
Okay, so let's talk about our opening thoughts before we get totally carried away here. And we had some huge news that came out this week in the Spanish Football Federation, basically saying that the Spanish Soccer Federation says it's suspending league and cup matches from May 16th in protest of a proposed law on the sale of television rights and division of revenue. Now, in Spain with La Liga, they basically, the way they chop up the TV revenue pie right now is Barca and Real Madrid get the gross majority of it, and then the rest of it is filtered down through the other teams. Some teams are, for lack of a better description, your Sevillas, your Valencias, your better sides get a little bit more of that pie than, let's say, your Celta Vigos and those guys. And now the way they are chopping up the pie, and I believe it was the Spanish government that approved a law on April 30th that allowed them to chop up the pie differently. Now, granted, Real Madrid and Barca under this new rule or this new law would still get the king's share of the ransom. But it was a little less to those big clubs, and a little bit more was filtered down to the smaller clubs to help them out. But the Spanish Soccer Federation is protesting the proposed law, and I didn't read too much into the article itself. Rob, I'm assuming you did read it?
I read a little bit of it. But...
Okay. And basically, by suspending matches on May 16th, you're basically sealing up La Liga. It would not affect the Spanish club's abilities to play in the Champions Leagues or Europa Leagues, as those are governed by FIFA or by UEFA and not by the LFP. But basically, in essence, they're going to cut this out. I think it's like literally 1 game short of the finish line here, which I think in the end won't do a whole heck of a lot, but it will do something for ticket sales. It will do something for, obviously, the revenue that will come in. So, Rob, what were your thoughts on this dramatic news that happened where the government is now getting involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can all agree that politics and football should not interfere.
They never should.
They shouldn't. And for this situation to happen, especially at the end of the season, where it's a close race, if you look at it, and basically 1 match can define it all. If Barcelona win this weekend against Atletico Madrid, they're basically champions of La Liga. Right. So it's a stupid decision, and yeah, politics should never interfere in the world of sport.
Now, I didn't read too much further into it afterwards, but this is, like I said, a law that the Spanish government had passed, or had approved the law, and it still had to be approved by Parliament. And just reading the article a little bit more on Yahoo Sports here, individual clubs currently negotiate their own TV contracts, with Real Madrid and Barcelona reaching huge levels or huge deals. The law would mandate a collective sale of rights for the top 2 divisions of league matches in Copa del Rey and the Super Cup. So again, instead of Real Madrid and Barca being able to independently negotiate their television deals and make boatloads of money on it, they would have to basically profit share and share the wealth with the other sides, and that I think is where, where the Spanish Federation has an issue. Probably more so, Real Madrid and Barcelona, I would bet, as they make huge sums of money. I saw some of the figures. It was like $150 to $160 million annually each that they get from the TV contract. That they're not going to get quite as much at this point. So, it's something that certainly bears watching, especially if it comes into, if it goes into other leagues. Can you imagine the EPL, which would be next up on the list? I don't think the EPL, and Mike, you would probably be the expert on this one more so than me, about how they divide that TV money, because talking about leagues that get a big pot of gold from television rights, no one's bigger than the Premier League in terms of their TV revenue, as they're licensed in multiple countries.
No, yeah, it's shared a lot more equally amongst the Premier League teams, and then it filters down to the Championship. I'm pretty sure teams don't negotiate their own big, huge deals, although some of them have their own TV channels, which, of course, is going to generate revenue.
Right.
I think this is what's scaring the Barcelona and Real Madrid, is that the new Premier League TV contract is so big that if they have to start sharing their windfalls with the other teams, they're going to be left behind the big Premier League teams.
Right. And also you want to kind of, just to envelop this into another little tidbit of information that came out before our show last week, was that Real Madrid is now facing sanctions for FIFA for financial fair play. I would imagine that something like this, where a team like Real Madrid, I mean, Barca's already under restrictions, but a team like Real Madrid that, let's say, spent $200 million and can't show the ability to pay for it now because of their TV contract has been altered, would seriously injure or damage the ability for them to be this super club that they are moving forward. Don't you think? I mean, Rob?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I'm sure that, with these types of deals and these types of issues, you always want to follow the money, but I would imagine the money right now is pointing at Barca and Real Madrid and their prime interests in this whole thing, as opposed to let's say the Cordobas or the Sociedades that would benefit from this. Okay, so we'll have to see how it plays out from here to see what happens moving forward. So. Anything else that you want to add to that, Rob, before I effort our next guest?
No. Nothing else. I just hope that they find a solution quickly, so we could become champions.
Mike, I'm going to ask you a quick question, totally off the subject, and before I effort my next guest, or our next guest. In Toronto, there's a place called California Sandwiches. Have you ever heard of it?
I've heard of it.
Okay. Have you ever eaten there?
I haven't.
Okay. Apparently, David Amoyal just tweeted 5 seconds ago, "Thank you to somebody who I don't recognize the name for taking me to have the best veal sandwich ever at California Sandwiches in Toronto."
Huh.
So, the guy he tweeted it to, just so that, is somebody named Walio.
And why is David in town?
I don't know, but apparently he's getting treated to California sandwiches, and he posted a picture of it, and the sandwich looks pretty good, man.
Where is he, in Italy?
No, David Amoyal, I think he's in Toronto right now.
I mean...
Normally? No, he's up in the Boston area.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's up in the Boston area. I believe so is Anto, that we talked to last week. I think they're both up in the Boston area. So,
all right.
So I'm just going to take a look for our next guest and make sure that he's ready to go. Anything else, Rob, that you want to add about the opening thoughts segment, or how many names are you up to in the trivia question?
Well, for the opening thoughts, I really hope they find a solution real quick, so we could be Atletico Madrid and win La Liga.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I was gonna say I don't think that's gonna be really in question too much, as you're pretty close to doing it at this point, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Especially with the results that we ended up with over the weekend. I think they've pretty much locked it up. If you ask me, I don't. Hello, hi, and welcome to Low Limit Football. Julien Laurens. This is Joe Usello. How are you tonight?
I'm good, and you?
Good, fantastic. Thank you for joining us. I wanted to touch base with you quickly while we have you on here. I want to start out with talking about France, if that's okay, or French football, and more specifically, probably France's greatest footballer right now, currently, which is Paul Pogba. Obviously he's the 800-pound gorilla in the room. When we aired last week, the word on the street was that it was going to be $80 million to Juventus for him to join PSG. Now, since then, we've had some movement with the potential of Pep Guardiola going to Manchester City, and possibly City offering up to $100 million now for Pogba. We've had David Amoyal on here recently who thought that there's solid potential that Pogba will be moving. He just wasn't 100% certain it would happen in this transfer window, and that it might be more likely to happen in the next transfer window. But all signs right now are pointing to the fact that he's leaving now. So your thoughts on Paul Pogba, where he stands right now with the French national team, especially finishing up finishing up their preparation matches for the Euro coming up next year, and where you think he will land next year.
Right. Let's start with the players. I just think he's a genius. He's only 22. He just turned 22 on March the 15th, and I just think he's a genius. I don't think there's anyone else like him. And considering he's so young, I think he's going to get better and better and better. And in a couple of years, maybe 3, maybe 4, once Cristiano is gone, once Messi is gone, I think he would be the best player in the world. So that's what I think of him. I think he's done brilliantly with Juventus. I think he's done great with France as well. He still needs to mature a bit, I think, in his game. There's still some room for improvement, which is normal again for a 22-year-old. As good as he is, there's still a lot of room for improvement. But I think he's sensational. I think he's exceptional, and I think that if I was anyone involved, with the hierarchy at Manchester United, I would be like, I would be killing myself for letting him go for, almost for free to Juventus. When you have such a talent at your club, either you didn't see how good he was, or you didn't know how to handle him, or you didn't know how to, to make sure that, he would stay with you. It's just beyond me. So, and that takes us to obviously what's next for Paul Pogba. You're right. I don't think there's any agreement with PSG. However, he met Nasser El Khelaifi, the PSG chairman, and Olivier Létang, the deputy sporting director, in Monaco on March the 18th. And, trust me, they didn't talk about, fashion or music or cinemas or even not football. They talked about Paul Pogba coming to PSG. They talked about money. Mino Raiola, Paul Pogba's agent, was there as well. Pogba is the club's priority in the summer, and even with financial fair play, they can afford him. They can afford the transfer fee. They can afford the wages. If you think that maybe, I don't know, Edinson Cavani could go as well the other way around from Paris to Turin, to maybe make the fee a bit less for PSG to comply with financial fair play. I think that's very possible. And don't forget as well that Paul Pogba, one, is a PSG fan. Two, is he's Paris born and bred. He was born in the Paris suburbs, grew up there. As a kid, he was going to the Parc des Princes to watch the team. He played at the Parc des Princes in a shooting competition as a kid when he was playing for Torcy. So, one of his dreams is to play one day for PSG. I'm not saying it will happen this summer. It might happen in, 10 years' time or 12 years' time towards the end of his career, or maybe in 5 years' time or 6 years' time. I just think that one day he will wear this shirt. The thing for PSG, obviously, is that there's a lot of other suitors. And you know what? I was thinking about it today, and I can't remember any other player, especially that young, who had so many clubs. And we're talking about the best clubs in the world after him. But when you think of Pogba, that he can almost pick the club he wants, and he would play there, whether it's Real Madrid, Barcelona, Juventus, because he can still stay at the club as well, PSG, Manchester United, Manchester City, Chelsea, even probably Bayern Munich would have him. It's incredible. It's really incredible. And I think PSG has a slight edge, and in my opinion, a slight favourite, because of the link with the city and the club. I think Real Madrid, I saw today the Spanish media was saying that the price of 100 million euros or 80 million, whatever the price was, maybe a bit too much. And I don't think we should believe anything Real Madrid says in terms of transfer window and transfers when we are only in May. I think they're always after Galactico, and I think Pogba is the best Galactico available for them right now. Yeah. So I can see Real Madrid at some point, putting more pressure on Raiola, on Juventus, maybe to sign Pogba. But you're right, and like you said, like David Amoyal said, it's hard to predict what's going to happen for Paul Pogba in the next 2 or 3 months. Although I do think he will leave this summer.
Okay. One more question on Paul Pogba, then I actually have some Ligue 2 questions for you. With Paul Pogba, I think when all is said and done, will we be talking about him along the same lines as Zinedine Zidane? Do you ever think he'll become, quote-unquote, that good?
Yes,
yeah.
I do. I think he will be that great. I think he has sort of invented, a new position in that midfield where he can do anything. Mm-hmm. He can defend, he can attack, he can tackle, he can score goals, he can get the ball back, he can give an assist, he can make a 50 yards pass, he can make a short pass, he can put a ball through, he can do with the ball. I mean, I've seen him. I cover France for my newspaper in France. I've gone to training sessions. Normal training sessions like a Tuesday morning, 10 o'clock when it's cold and you don't really want to train. You don't want to be out there. And I've seen him do things with the ball that I haven't seen anyone does. And he's that special that I think, in 10 years' time, he's 22 now. Let's say he retires at 32. If he doesn't make anything stupid in terms of choices, through the career and in terms of attitudes, I think he would be one of the greatest for sure.
Okay. Now, if I know that with Lionel Messi, we talk about Lionel Messi and we say, okay, the problem with Messi and where people don't want to quite put him with Pelé or Maradona is because he hasn't won some type of championship for his country. Pelé won the World Cup, Maradona won the World Cup. And right now, Messi, the people look at Messi and some people just will not put him on that level yet because he hasn't done it at the country level. Will Pogba need to win a World Cup or a European Championship like Zinedine Zidane to get to that level?
Yeah, probably. And I think, I think people are right in a way for Messi as well because that's how you judge great players. It's really hard to compare players in different eras and different times, and football was obviously very different in the 1970 than it was in 1986 for Pelé and Maradona, that it was at the last World Cup for Messi. So it's always hard, but where you can judge is the trophy won and the goal scored for some, the clean sheet for others. I don't know, but that's how you compare. And I think Paul Pogba will be compared with the greatest if he has the trophy cabinet in his house for it. But I've got no doubt that, we've seen already, 22, he's got 3 Serie A titles. He's going to play this week, I believe, in the Champions League semi-final. He can, take his team to the final, and then imagine if he wins it at 22. Zidane made his debut for France in 1994. It was, Pogba was much younger than Zidane was, for example. But you're right, but I think the Euros in France, I've always thought that the 2014 World Cup in Brazil was too early for Pogba. And, he had flashes of brilliance. He had also some flashes where you could tell he was still a bit young, for that super level. Mm-hmm. I think 2016, he would be in a much better place. I think he can definitely lead France to winning the Euros at home. And if he wins so early, such a big thing, then I think the rest could follow. And I can see him and France, we're dominating a bit, in the next few years. And you're right, that's what it will be judged with.
Yeah, they certainly have the players to put around someone like Paul Pogba to really, to make him shine and shine as a nation, to bring him back to that type of level when they did win the World Cup. Was at 98. So I think that it's certainly within their grasp. With such a strong young team. So
yeah, you're right. We've got a great generation. That generation who won the Under-20 World Cup in 2013 in Turkey was, Pogba, and Varane was not there because he was injured, but he was part of that generation. Yeah. And just those two. I will have those two. I think in any country in the world, those two, Varane and Pogba, we play.
Yes.
You know, for Brazil, for Germany, for England, for the United States, for anyone, I think they will be there. For Argentina, you know, they will be there, and I think we're very, very fortunate to have them. My only slight worry is about in the striker position. I think Karim Benzema is an amazing striker, but you know, he was born in 1987, so he's not getting any younger. So he still have a few good years ahead of him, but I can't really see anyone in the youth ranks in France, you know, in the striker position being good enough already to follow in his steps. But there's plenty of time. But I think we've got a great generation, and like you said, the future looks really bright for French football.
Wouldn't someone like Alexander Lacazette be that guy?
Yes, but he's not that young either. So you know, the problem with Lacazette is that he's not younger enough from Benzema, because you know Didier Deschamps plays with only one up front, which means that Benzema will play now. He's 27, he'll be 28 in December, Karim Benzema. So he's got easily another 4 or 5 years, and in those 4 or 5 years, unless Lacazette really, really, really becomes incredible and Karim Benzema, you know, become less good than he is now, I can't see Lacazette playing much for France if Karim stays in the form that he's been in the last couple of years, really. Yeah. So that's why it's tricky. I was more looking at, you know, players who are maybe 20 now, 21, the players of the Pogba generation, really. I think Griezmann is a very, very great prospect, but he's not really a proper in-and-out striker, you know. So I think that's somewhere where maybe we need to have a look at some point. But apart from that generation is fantastic.
I was going to say, because that would be too bad, because someone like Lacazette, I mean, who really exploded on the scene this year, is a wonderful, wonderful striker, and I think he would certainly work well up there. But you're right, if Deschamps only plays one striker formation, then it's going to be tough for him to get ahead of Karim Benzema. So I'm going to send you over to my co-host Mike Orr. I was going to give you the League 2 questions, but I'm going to see how much time we have.
Okay, sorry if I talk too much.
No. I have so many other questions I have for you. So.
Don't worry, anytime.
But let me send you over to Mike, and I know Mike has some questions for you.
Thanks, Joe. Bonjour, Julien. Good evening.
Bonjour,
and thank you. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Pleasure.
Joel actually has led me into my first question here, but on the club level about Alexander Lacazette. And now that it looks like Lyon's going to finish second in Ligue 1 and qualify for the Champions League, do you see him staying at Lyon for another season, or do you see him making a big move to the Bundesliga or perhaps even the EPL this summer? And is he ready for such a move at 23 years old?
Yeah, it's a good question. Jean-Michel Aulas, the Lyon chairman, was at a conference tonight, and he made a little speech, and he said in his speech that actually Lacazette and Fekir have decided to stay next season at Lyon. And I mean, we don't have to believe him. You know, he's the guy is a businessman. He's done that. You know, he's done that all his life. He could say this just to get the price going up a bit even more. And in the back of his mind, he's thinking about letting them go. However, I do think that he talks the truth. And I think it makes a lot of sense for both Lacazette and Fekir to stay another season at Lyon. One, like you said, there's the Champions League. They're going to finish second, which means they don't even have to go through the qualifier round. They go straight into the group stages, which, you know, for Lacazette and Fekir's never even played in Europe, not even in the Europa League, nothing. And Lacazette, I think, has only 12 games in his whole career in the Champions League. So, you know, they need that kind of experience, and they need to play every game of that Champions League group stages. Imagine that, you know, Lacazette and Fekir go to a bigger club, you know, in England or in Germany, like you said, or in Spain, or, you know, wherever. They're not assured to play those big games. You know, staying at Lyon will make sure they play in the Champions League every single game, and they will get a vital experience for them. Then there's a brand new stadium that Lyon are building that's going to be ready in January. And for someone like Lacazette and Fekir, you know, they're Lyon through and through. They were born there. They went through the academy. And for them, you know, it's something special to play in that new stadium. And I really believe that they love the club, they love the town, they love the fans. And it will mean a lot for them to play in that new stadium, because the club and the town have waited so long for that new stadium. It's finally there. It's almost ready. And I think it would be special for them to be there and imagine maybe Lacazette being captain, you know, for a game at home in the Champions League, maybe even. That would be incredible for someone who was born in Lyon and went through the club and has only played in the club. And the last thing is, in 12 months' time, we've got the Euros in France, and they cannot take the risk of leaving Lyon, where they're sure to play every single game, where they will improve because, like I said, they will play in the Champions League. They will compete for the title with PSG once again because they're going to be stronger next season. There's no doubt about that. But they cannot take the risk to leave the club, go somewhere else. I don't know. Let's say Manchester City for one, Arsenal for the other, or I don't know, Wolfsburg. Chelsea, whoever, where they will not, or Liverpool, they will not be sure to play at all. The competition will be much higher in those big clubs for starting places than it is at Lyon, where they're sure to play because they are the two best players of the team. And I really can't see them taking that risk 12 months before the Euros, because Deschamps already said, I will only take people at the Euros who will play with their club. So why would you leave and take the risk of not playing enough to miss the Euros at home, which is going to be incredible? Having the Euros in France is something special in a career. It's probably the only time it will happen to them. So I just can't see them taking that risk. I think they will stay at Lyon. They will play a lot. They will play well. They will book their place in Deschamps' squad for the Euros. They might also win things with Lyon. Who knows? They can win the league next season. And after that, yes, after that they will look to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree. But maybe if they would have won the league this year, it might have been a little different. But seeing as they didn't, I think he's going to stay around too. It's going to be better for his development. I think another year, like you said, he's going to play Champions League football every game, and they have a legitimate shot at winning Ligue 1 next year.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you're right. I think they will strengthen the squad because the money that the Champions League bring now, they're sure to have 30 million euros, 40 million euros, to be there. So they can, for a club who's got a lot of debts, who in the last few years had to sell their best players, the people like Lloris, for example, they had to let them go because they needed the money of the transfer fees and then, to cut a bit the wage bill. It's not the case this summer because of the money that's going to come from the Champions League. So they will strengthen the squad. They will have all that experience that, clearly you saw was missing in the last few games. The game at Caen Saturday, which cost them the title, or at least, gave PSG the title. You could see that they were maybe not ready for all the pressure of the title race and all those key moments toward the end of the season. So you're right, they will definitely be stronger next season. And it's even better for French football that they stay at least another year.
Okay, thanks. Looking back, it's been a year since Monaco sacked Claudio Ranieri, who guided them to promotion and a Champions League spot in his 2 years in charge, and then was replaced by Jardim. This season, they may miss the Champions League. So do you think they're any better now than they were under Ranieri? And is Jardim in any trouble here? And could we see a surprise name like Zidane come in here?
No, I don't think Jardim is under any kind of pressure. I think he's doing a great job, actually. They lost at Marseille on Sunday in a free game where they controlled the game for 90% of it, and then in the last 10 minutes after Abdenor went off injured, they just crumbled really weirdly. But I think we saw it against Arsenal as well. I think they had some great moments this season, and I think Jardim is doing a great job. The thing with Ranieri was cool. He was funny. He's a bit bonkers, but there was not much in it. There really was not much in it. They qualified for the Champions League. They finished second because they had a great squad. They had the best squad after PSG that year. And when you've got Falcao, even if he got injured in January, when you have James Rodriguez in your team, and towards the end of that season, James was incredible. Just before the World Cup, he was incredible for Monaco. He has 3 fantastic months to really carry the team with him. And I think for me, it was more down to the squad than to Ranieri. I never really rated Ranieri, even when he was at Chelsea. And I think Jardim, maybe was not my favorite choice because he's a bit of an old school character, in some ways, although he did a great job in Portugal before coming to Monaco. But fair play to him, they started really, really badly the season, and he turned things around really, really well, and I really think they will finish third. They've got probably have the easiest run of fixtures compared to Marseille and Saint-Etienne to finish in that third place. And, they did really well in the Champions League as well, which is credit to Jardim and to the team. And I think he's there to stay. And then their new philosophy of not spending too much because of financial fair play, but, trying to using more youth from their own academy, and also to get younger players to come to the club with a sell-on value. I think he's quite clever, and he's definitely the right philosophy for me.
You mentioned financial fair play, and they were one of the squads that's been hit with breaching the financial rules, and they've been ordered to pay a $13 million fine, and their European squad is going to be limited for the next couple upcoming seasons. How is this going to affect them?
Yeah, I mean, it's not, I don't know, it's a big fine, but it's not, it's not the 60 million euros that Manchester City and PSG had to pay last summer, for example, So I think they were really happy by the way they sort of got away with maybe a bigger fine. Maybe they could have been in PSG and in PSG's and City's shoes as well by, only being allowed to make one big transfer in the summer and then having to sell before buying, for example, which is not the case for them, which, I think is a great boost, for a club when you don't have that kind of restriction, before your transfer window in the summer. So, I don't think that's a big deal, actually. Their wage bill is going down. There's the issue Falcao, that's for sure. And I think they need to be very clever on that one. He's obviously on an incredible wage, even for Monaco. And he's, they bought him for 60 million euros, and now he's worth maybe half of that after the terrible season he's having with you.
Okay, let's turn back the calendar again. Last June, when Chelsea transferred David Luiz to PSG for 50 million, the prevailing thought was that Chelsea had taken PSG for a good long ride. So a year on, how do you see this deal now? Do you still think that PSG overpaid for him? Hello?
Have we lost Julien?
I think we have.
Oh, well, he's still here. Let's see if we can get him back quickly. So bear with me one second. So far, it's been a fantastic interview, I've got to tell you. Let's see if he's still there. So, yeah, hopefully we didn't lose him because it was really, like I said, it was awesome. But let's see. The wonders of the internet, right?
Hello?
Oh,
Can
there
you hear me?
are. Yes, there you are. Okay, good.
Sorry. I don't know what happened there. It was really weird.
No, all right. Mike, please continue.
Good. Thanks, Julian. Welcome back. I guess my next question was, I asked you when we lost you last June when Chelsea transferred David Luiz to PSG for 50 million euro. The prevailing thought was that, actually 50 million pounds, I think it was. The prevailing thought was Chelsea had taken PSG for a good long ride. So a year on, how do you see this deal now? And do you think that PSG overpaid for him?
Yeah, they might have overpaid, but he knocked them out of the Champions League. So I do not care. I do not care. They could have paid 100 millions. I do not care because he knocked them out of the Champions League. And yes, he had a terrible first leg against Barcelona in a game that he should have never played in because he was simply not fit. And it was a game where he was maybe planned to play for 20 minutes, and he ended up coming on after 20 minutes. So I think people were a bit harsh with him after that first leg against Barca and the 2 nutmegs from Luis Suarez, who was outstanding on that night as well. So maybe it was a bit too much, but how do you compare with Di Maria and seeing what he's done with Manchester United, for example? Who got the better deal in the two? At least David Luiz, like we said, knocked out Chelsea in the last 16 of the Champions League, and put PSG through. That Di Maria has done nothing, and they paid more for him than for David Luiz. Than PSG for David Luiz. So, transfer is always the same. Yes, maybe they could have had him for less than that, but they signed him, and I do think that he didn't have a bad first season at PSG, and that he will get better.
Okay, thanks a lot. And I'd like to thank you so much for answering my questions tonight. And I have just one more before I give you over to my co-host, Rob. And that is, do you ever see Thierry Henry becoming the manager of Arsenal Football Club?
I think he really wants to. The thing is, I'm not a big fan of those former super great player of a club coming back, and being great manager. That's the thing, okay. Kenny Dalglish, they did the first time round with Liverpool, not really the second time. Alan Shearer was a disaster at Newcastle. Pippo Inzaghi is a disaster at AC Milan. I'm really not sure that's the right thing to do, as a club, for Arsenal, first of all, but also for him. I don't know why you would take the risk of tarnishing the great reputation you've got in a great club like Arsenal by going back as a manager. Not, if it works, fair enough, it's obviously great, but I'm not a big fan. But he really wants it, I think, and it might happen one day, and then we will see. And if it does happen, I wish Thierry and obviously the club all the best. And I would like him to succeed there. I'm just not a big fan of those former great players coming back to their club and trying it as a manager.
Okay, fair enough. And thanks again for answering my questions. And I know Rob's chomping to ask you a few.
Pleasure, mate.
Bonjour, Julien.
Bonjour.
Nice to have you on the show. My first question to you is, what do you think is the expectations for... I have a question from my friend Connor the Smith from Vavel, and he's asking me, he's a big Saint Etienne fan, and he wants to know if Christophe Galtier will go on to bigger and better things.
Well, it's a very interesting question. He's got obviously a year left on his contract, and they're doing incredibly, considering the budget they're on, and the money that they actually don't have. For him to have taken the team, fourth in the table right now. They finished, I think, fourth last season, fifth the year before that. He's doing an incredible job, and I really think he's got something special. It all depends at the end. I think if they qualify for the Champions League at the end of the season, which is still possible, although like I said, I still believe Monaco will finish third. But if they do finish Champions League, he will obviously stay because it would be a great new chapter in his career at the club. If they finish only in the Europa League, he might be tempted to go somewhere else, probably in England. I think he really, really wants to come to England and manage in England. So it'd be interesting to see what he does. But I do think that he's got great potential, and that if the language barrier is not too big wherever he goes, I think he could have a great career abroad as well.
Yeah, that goes to now a segue to my next question. Who do you think are going to get the final two European spots in Liga?
So I think PSG champions, Lyon second. I think Monaco will finish third. I think Saint Etienne are actually probably going to hold on and finish fourth, which means Marseille will finish fifth, and Bordeaux sixth, which would be still in the Europa League if PSG qualify. If PSG win the cup, it would mean that sixth place in Ligue 1 and will qualify for the Europa League. So I think it'd be interesting if we've got PSG, Monaco, and Lyon in the Champions League. If we've got Saint Etienne, Marseille, and Bordeaux in the Europa League, I think that's quite pretty strong. French contingent in those two European cups, which will make it very interesting next season.
Speaking of Marseille, obviously Marcelo Bielsa took charge of the side earlier this season and has put them out to first place, I think, until the new year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
What do you think went wrong for Marseille and Bielsa in particular, where now they were dominating League even over PSG, and now they're struggling to even try to get a European spot?
Yeah, I think it's the Bielsa effect. I think it happened exactly the same, with Athletic Bilbao, where the second half of the season, the team is a bit more struggling for a few reasons. One is a very demanding coach. The way he wants his team to play is very demanding, and I don't think physically it's possible for anyone, apart from a superhero, to last the whole season like that. It's just crazy. And two, I think, the rest of the teams in your league just catch up. They learn how to play against you. They learn what your weaknesses are and what your strengths are. And after 6 months in the league, they've worked out how to play against you, and how to defend better against you, how to attack better against you. And I think that's what cost him. I love him. I think he's great for Ligue 1. I really hope he stays one more season at least with Marseille, which I'm not so sure about. But, he's proved great entertainment. And I do think he's a genius. Maybe he's a genius of the older generation, if you want, and maybe he would need to evolve a little bit more, not lose his genius, but just evolve a little bit more for to be a bit more adapted to modern football, if you want, because he's done things this season where you were thinking this is completely crazy. Why'd you go 3 at the back right now? And then they got done, against Lorient, for example, at home. They lost 5-3. It was what he did tactically that night was just ridiculous. So I do think that there's there's still stuff to improve for him, although he's very stubborn, and I'm not sure he will improve them. But still, I think he's done more good things than bad, I think, this season.
What do you believe are Rennes' chance of holding on to Paul George in the tip?
Well, that's another big one. He there was a report in L'Equipe that he travelled to Liverpool and went to see the training ground and the stadium and all of that. He denied it tonight again on French television. So I'm not sure if that really happened or not. But I can see why he has a few clubs after him, because I think he's got great potential, and he's only 22. He's having a really good season, 9 goals and 6 assists in Ligue 1. And he's got something special. He's got that pace and those skills and that explosivity and all of that, which makes him great. He's got that, arrogant attitude as well. That I don't know if you saw the goal he scored against Reims last season, where he stopped the ball on the line after dribbling past the keeper and just put it with his head, which is very cocky, obviously, but that's him, and I think he still has a lot, again, room for improvement. He will improve, he will progress, but he's got the potential to become a very, very good player.
Sticking to Ligue 1, I asked this question to one of your great friends of the show and of yourself, Jonathan Johnson, and I told him, what do you believe are the expectations in the future for PSG's Marco Verratti?
We talked about Pogba earlier on the show. And I think Verratti is very similar, not the same profile as a player, but similar in terms of prospect, and potential. I think Verratti has everything to become the best player in the world as well. It'd be him and Pogba, really. When you see what he does at such a young age, when he sees his technical ability and the vision, the passing, with both feet as well, and all of that, it's just crazy. He has to sort out a bit his attitude, because he's got that bad temper or that hot blood to go be crazy, at certain times in the game, and to get a lot of yellow cards and things like that. But apart from that, if he sorts that out of his game, I think he can become incredible, because he already is incredible. And when you see him play, it's just a delight to see him play. And just if you think, we were talking about Pogba, obviously, if you just imagine in your head that PSG might sign Pogba and put in the same team Paul Pogba and Marco Verratti for the next, 5 years to come or 4 years, that's going to be incredible.
Do you see the centre-back pairing of Raphaël Varane and Aymeric Laporte for the World Cup for France in 2018?
Well, that's a good one, because we talked earlier in that great generation we have, and that generation is summed up by the incredible potential we've got at the back. This is something, again, that I can't recall many national teams with 3 or 4 centre backs of more or less the same age, the same generation, being so strong. You mentioned Varane and Laporte. For me, Varane is above everybody else. I know he didn't have the greatest of games in the first leg against Turin against Juventus, but for me, the kid is just incredible. Laporte looks fantastic to me every time I've seen him this season. However, I want him to play a bit more in the Champions League. This season in the Champions League was not great for Bilbao, and I want to see a bit more of him at that level, to see if he, and see him in a bigger club as well, to see if he can really develop into a world-class defender. Don't forget, we also have Kurt Zouma, who's had a very, very good season at Chelsea, who is again fantastic prospect at the back. Mamadou Sakho is not too old either, and he'd be right there as well. Eliakim Mangala, I know he was more of a liability with City this season, but still, the guy again has great potential. So it's really rare for us to have so much prospect again, in that position of centre half, and whether it's Deschamps or it might not be for I don't know, for the next 10 years, but for how long as Deschamps is there, and then the guy who's going to come after him, to have Zouma and Laporte and Varane and Sakho and Mangala, all those people, and don't forget Koscielny is not too old either. So have all those guys available, which is just a fantastic asset, I think.
Have you been impressed so far of Anthony Griezmann's debut season at Atletico Madrid? And what do you think he's going to be in terms as a player for the I guess in the world? What type of player?
You can only be impressed by what he's done at Atletico so far this season. I didn't expect him to be. I expected him to do well, but not to do that well. I have to say, that went beyond my expectation. I think he went beyond a lot of people's expectations, probably even Griezmann himself and El Cholo as well. My only issue with Griezmann is I want more from him in the national team. I'm not happy. I'm not happy about what he's done so far. Okay, the World Cup was all right, but it was not fantastic either. He's had a few good games there and there, but it hasn't been consistent enough. Against Brazil, which is the last big game we've had, he was very average, and that's kind for me. And I just want more, for me, with the national team, and I think that he will get to the next step once he get that consistency with the national team.
Okay, and just my last question. Do you believe, ideally, that this squad for the French national team will be the champions of the European Championships? And also, going back even more further, do you think they have the potential as favorites to win the World Cup in Russia?
I think we will win the Euros, that's for sure. And you've heard it on our podcast first. I think we'll get there. I think being at home will be a massive advantage. I think Didier Deschamps is a great coach. He's got that winning mentality that is really starting to get into the players' mind as well. I think Pogba by then, will be fantastic. I think Varane by then will be great. Griezmann, we said, hopefully, will be great as well. We'll have Benzema, who will be at his prime in 2016. As well, and if you add, I don't know, someone like Matuidi, who again, is in his prime as well. If you think, I don't know, of Kondogbia, for example, some players like that who will get better as well. I think we've got everything to win the Euros. And if you start by winning the Euros, and we saw it with Spain, for example, the momentum you get going into the next big competition is incredible, and it's obviously too early to say who's going to win the World Cup in Russia in 2018. But I think that France, especially if we win the Euros, but even if we don't, I think we'll be one of the favourites for sure.
Okay, merci beaucoup, Julien. I'm going to pass it over to Joe to.
Yeah, cool, man. Thank you.
Obviously, their French is much better than mine. I just have a couple of quick questions for you before we let you go. And again, thank you for joining us tonight. I know we've talked a lot about PSG tonight. We've talked about Marco Verratti. We've talked about a couple other players. The one person we haven't mentioned yet is Edinson Cavani. Much has been made about him possibly not being happy at PSG, especially having to play with Ibrahimovic. There have been rumors of him moving potentially to Juventus. So what's the latest on Cavani at the moment?
Yeah, it's quite clear that he's not happy to have been playing, on the left-hand side or the right-hand side, for so much of his PSG career, which is for sure. It's like if, I was asking you to do an economic podcast, for 2 years. At the end, you would say like, come on, I've had enough. I want to go back to a football podcast. Mm-hmm. It's exactly the same for him. There's a point now where he says, I want to play again in the center, which that's his position. So it's hard to blame him for that. The problem is obviously that Ibra is there. He will still be there next season, and as long as Ibra is there, there will be no room for Cavani up front in the centre. So I can see why he's a bit frustrated. I can see why he would like to leave. I don't think the club would want to let him go because, ideally for them, he's the perfect replacement for Ibra once Ibra will go, which would be, in the summer 2016. But then it's down to them to try to convince Cavani to stay another season and have another season playing, wide on the right or wide on the left, or sometimes in the center with Ibra in a 4-4-2 formation like Blanc has been playing in the last 2 league games, for example. But I'm not even, if they can convince him, fair enough, because once Ibra goes, he will be the big star and he'll be happy. But another year, like the last two, So I'm not sure they will manage to convince him. And if they can't convince him, then I think they will use him probably, or try to use him, in the Pogba deal somewhere, somehow. Like I said earlier, maybe to, he will go to Turin, which makes the price of Pogba, I don't know, 40 million euros less, or 30 million euros, or, whatever. And then use him for that, but I think it would be a shame to let him go. But again, I understand his frustration.
Mm-hmm. My last question for you is, I'm going to take it actually away from Ligue 1 and go to Ligue 2.
Yeah.
And really, and I don't want to butcher their name. It is Troyes that is qualified for Ligue 2. Is that correct? I mean, for Ligue 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
Promoted. Yeah.
Yep. For 75 points. It looks like Ajaccio is also going to make it. They're currently at 62 points. They're in second place overall, and I do want to. I want to talk about the similarities between them and a different Ajaccio. But third place right now, which would be the third qualifying position, is really very, very close. There's 3 points separating three teams. Angers, Nancy, and Dijon are all separated by 3 points, with a big match this weekend between Angers and Nancy, which will probably decide that third position to qualify for Ligue 1. So can you give us a preview of that particular matchup, and who do you think will win that to come up?
Yes, we've got a great season in our French second division in Ligue 2. Like you said, Troyes going up. They were in Ligue 1 before. They have the best squad. I think they've got a very good manager in Furlan. No problem with them going up. Ajaccio, though, is an incredible story. When you think about Carpi in Italy going up to Serie A, when you think about Bournemouth, going up to the Premier League from the Championship in England, Ajaccio would be the same. It's a small club, and it'll be a great story if they can do it. And like you said, I believe they will. And then, you're right. You've got that incredible race for that third place. The thing about Angers, they've been really close in the last few seasons, but never just made it. And, everybody's wondering in France if maybe that would be the year. And for them, again, it would be a fantastic story because, I don't know exactly the start, but they might have been in the top flight in France before, but that was a very long time ago. And for them to go up, would be great. However, I do think that Nancy have more experience. Pablo Correa, was the manager when they were in Ligue 1. They've got a squad with a lot of young players from the academy. They've got a brilliant academy, but I think overall they probably would have enough experience, or at least more experience than Dijon and Angers to go up. But that game this weekend will be just fantastic.
Okay. The last thing I want to bring up is obviously we mentioned the city of Ajaccio, but it's not the Ajaccio that everyone is familiar with. That Ajaccio is actually currently in a relegation position out of Ligue 2. This is a team that last year was in Ligue 1, and they've really fallen far. Memo Ochoa, the goaltender for the Mexican national team, was their goalie at the time last year. What's happened there that they've fallen so far from the top?
Well, it's an incredible story again. To see the two different Ajaccio, the AC Ajaccio, the team that is struggling now to not go down to the third division, and the GFCO Ajaccio, who's almost there to go up, which would be, like we said, incredible. It was when you're such a small club and you're in the top flight of your league, whatever league that is, going down is always a trauma. It's always very difficult because you lose your best players, and you mentioned Memo Ochoa. Ochoa kept them in Ligue 1 for 2 seasons. The guy was incredible. And once that guy leaves, because he's not going to play in the French second division, obviously, then you found yourself in trouble because you've lost all your best players, not just Ochoa, but the others as well. And you've managed to keep some, like your captain Cavalli, for example, who's Ajaccio, through and through, born and bred, but he can't do everything on his own. So it's always that, that transition when you go down and your budget goes down and your best players goes and you have to rebuild, but you're not sure how, and you make 1 or 2 transfers, but they don't work out, and then you're in trouble, and then you can quickly go down 2 leagues even. So, I really hope for them they can stay in Ligue 2, and that would be a massive boost for them if they can stay up. And then see in the future, but what a story would be for the neighbors,
I agree. So, Julien, thank you again for joining us tonight on Low Limit Football. We really appreciate it. It was a fantastic discussion, and hopefully we'll be able to have you back very, very soon.
Yeah, anytime. Pleasure for inviting me, boys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julien.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
And that was Julien Laurens. Fantastic interview, guys. He was awesome. I'm so glad that we were able to get him on the show. But we certainly had a fantastic time talking to him. Mike, your reaction to his interview?
Oh, I really enjoyed it. He's knows a lot about football. There's no doubt about that.
Amen. And Rob, how about you?
Yeah. Same with Jonathan Johnson. Really intelligent about all things French football.
Yeah. And we certainly enjoyed it. So, guys, because we have our next guest was pre-recorded, we're going to jump right into it and hit the interview with Nico DiBenedetto. Again, Nico is from he's from Beyond the Pitch Sports. He's a third co-host with Philip De Bruyn and Anto on Sirius XM. They also, if you can go to BTP Media, you can find their website as well. So, without further ado, gentlemen, the interview with Nico DiBenedetto. And joining us live on Low Limit Football is Nico DiBenedetto from Beyond the Pitch. Nico, how are you tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. How you doing, guys?
Good. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're really excited to have you. I want to open it up. First of all, let's talk about MLS, okay? And more specifically, your thoughts on the collective bargaining agreement that came down at the beginning of the year. Obviously, we avoided a strike. But not without casualties, I would guess, or I would say. So, give me your thoughts on the MLS, the agreement between the Players Union and MLS in general.
When the deal was struck, I think everybody was relieved that the season's going to go on. But there was this aspect of the players they were able to open that door to free agency. At the very least, they did that, and that's where a lot of people were saying that there was this opportunity that has been created, this crack in this MLS system that was forming that they can now attack in the next 5 years. That wasn't how I looked at it. I looked at it as the players came out strong. They said they wanted free agency. What they wanted, I thought was a little bit outrageous, is full-fledged unrestricted free agency at the end of contracts. I thought that was a bit too much. That was much to go from one extreme to the other. But I felt there could have been a middle ground that could have been negotiated, like we see in other sports in the United States, in hockey and basketball, where there's restricted free agents and there's unrestricted free agents depending on time, tenure and time played with the club and within the league. But then we find out that it's this 28-8, sort of a minimum of 28 years old, 8 years of service within MLS. So if you leave and come back, that doesn't count if you leave. It's all cumulative. So it just that wasn't good enough. That's not free agency. And then you find out when the rules came out just last week that there's another caveat, that there is another aspect where it's sort of like there are certain conditions that we don't know about that have to be met, or there's a certain ruling that comes through. Now, while it seems like some of the mechanisms that were behind the Iron Curtain, you would say, of MLS, some people would say, or that sort of some of the rules that some people believe that they make up as they go along, like the blind draw for Jermaine Jones, or different allocation drafts for certain players, or getting Clint Dempsey to Seattle in a certain fashion because they felt it was important to get him to Seattle. That stuff, a lot of people feel has been clear, and it's a little more transparent. Well, that remains to be seen. We'll see where it goes from here, but in the end, the free agency aspect of things isn't good enough. And to me, that's where I look at when I have other sports and I work with other sports and I see what goes on in the off season. It's a constant discussion. We just saw it now with the NFL draft. We're going to see it now where the undrafted rookies are signing, and it's making headlines that undrafted rookies are signing contracts. Okay? And we're seeing this sort of hot stove talk that we used to see in baseball all the time. We're seeing this in every sport now, and we don't see it in MLS. We don't see it as much. And if you had that type of system, it will generate more buzz. It'll get fans even more interested in how do you fix your team? What do we do? When's this contract up? How do we get out from under this deal? What do we do then? Who can we go after in free agency? Right now, I'm not sure who qualifies for free agency, because once MLS announced that caveat to the free agency aspect of things, that could have just blown up the whole system of what we were initially introduced to. So I'm disappointed. I'm really down on where this thing's headed, and I'm really down on the idea because Don Garber keeps saying by 2022, MLS is going to be one of the top leagues in the world. I don't think this CBA gets you there. I think you need to spend a few more bucks. You need to find a way to develop players a little bit better, and you really need to find a way to get that mid-level player improving. And that mid-level player is going to improve if you increase the salary cap and bring in some other quality players. I'm sorry, guys. Did you hear that ping?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. I'm sorry. Thank God we're recording.
No problem. One question I have for you is in regards to the single entity problem. The one thing that I've always had issue with, especially when you talk about free agency or bringing it to the next level by going to a free agency type system, is the fact that all of these players never sign a contract with New York Red Bull. They don't sign the contract with the Chicago Fire. They sign it with MLS.
Right.
And what has to happen to break that? Because if you want to really have true free agency, these players need to be able to go and negotiate with the team that they want to play for, not be allocated to that team.
Well, that's the way it was the early days of MLS. As I'm sure you remember from '96, probably at some point during Garber's regime, it slowly changed behind the scenes. That used to be that look, Sunil Gulati was fired as MLS deputy commissioner for doing that exact thing. He signed Tab Ramos to the MetroStars without consulting the owners of the then owners of the MetroStars, and he lost his job because of that.
Right.
That was one of the reasons why I believe he lost his job. A major reason why he lost his job. So that was back in, I believe, 1999 or 2000 that happened. And then as it's gone on, it's changed. The teams have had much more say. Teams are involved in the negotiation, so there is more. It's just that when it's actually done, the paperwork aspect of things, yes, it is all filed through the league, but they were registered through U.S. Soccer as an MLS player and all that. And then they're sort of issued to that team. But the team does have a lot of say. The team is involved in negotiations. The player can approach. So a foreign player can approach an MLS team specifically, and then it all goes from there. Where I have the issue is, say, Diego Forlan wants to come to MLS, but someone has him on a discovery list, and if he wants to go to a certain team, say he wants to go to Los Angeles and Toronto has him on the list, then Toronto gets first dibs, and for LA to get him, they've got to pull off a trade to get him. That kind of stuff I think needs to stop. I don't think that needs to happen anymore. Right. But that's, again, because of that, all of a sudden it creates a free agent model. Because when Steven Gerrard wants to sign for MLS, and he says, I want to go play for the Los Angeles Galaxy, and they put him on the Los Angeles Galaxy, they have to have some kind of mechanism that makes it show that there isn't this necessarily free agency for people who come into the league. Otherwise, the players from within the league are going to scream bloody murder that they don't have free agency.
Right, exactly.
And I think that's sort of the caveat with some of these lists and why they keep them going, because they're trying to keep this all. It's all about controlling the costs. And MLS for years has lost a lot of money, but we're seeing now that the TV contracts are up. They've got records and sponsorships. The values of these franchises are going up, but we're not seeing the investment on the field with certain teams. Now there are other teams, Seattle, New York City FC. The Red Bulls have pulled back a little bit. With certain teams, they are investing. They're putting their money on the field. They're trying to find better players. You can't argue with Seattle and LA because they are really trying to put quality talent on the field. And I'll tell you, in LA, players will go to LA because they want to play for Bruce Arena. Right. So they'll take less money. You have guys like Baju Husidic who take less money to go play for Los Angeles because he wants to play for Bruce Arena. And that aspect of it, I think that to me is the issue. I want to see more. Look, I'm not saying you have to spend $50 million. But if you're telling me you can't spend as much money as, say, Udinese, $25 million, $20 million, right. But that's how much Udinese spends. They've qualified for Champions League.
Yeah.
With that kind of a budget. And look at the players they've put on the field throughout the years. So if you can't put a team on the field of that quality, that kind of money, I think you'd really attract more attention. You'd get even more of a market share in the sports market, and you'd really start to generate buzz because these players would become valuable in the global market.
Okay. No, I agree. But they certainly have to move forward with some type of system that's going to be an improvement on what they've got now. Or else, like you're saying, the league is just going to remain stagnant, and they're not going to get to where Don Garber wants them to get to in 2022, which is one of the top leagues in the world.
And the only other way it would happen is if everybody else implodes.
Right.
I mean, and that's not even far from that's a possibility too, right? I mean,
yeah, no, it's true.
Look at some of the teams in Spain and Italy. I mean, I guess everybody else could just implode, and we're left with the EPL and Bundesliga and MLS.
And that's it. Now, I'm going before I even throw it over to Rob, because I have a couple more MLS questions. One of the questions I want to throw at you is something that we threw at Anto last week. Kind of one of the topics that we threw at him that I want to kind of dig in with you a little bit more, and it's kind of along these lines a little bit. is the discussion of how MLS treated the CONCACAF Champions League this time around. There were some good points to it and some bad points to it. They made the schedule for the Montreal Impact a little more user-friendly so that they could focus on the particular tournament. But in the end, now you're looking at a Montreal team that is dead last, 2 points so far in the season, 5 games at hand on everybody, and it's a monster of a hill to climb at this point. So that's the bad news from it. But nice to see that they're starting to maybe put a little bit of focus on the CONCACAF Champions League because, for one thing, it is the gateway to the Club World Cup. If you want to improve your league and if you want to be one of the quote-unquote top leagues in the world, you're going to need to actually dance on that stage eventually, I think. You're going to need to get up there against the Asian Cup winners, and you're going to need to get up there against the Champions League winners and that sort of thing. Because if you don't get to showcase yourself on the biggest stages in the world, no one's going to notice you. So, your thoughts on how MLS handled CONCACAF Champions League this year, and where should they go from here?
It's interesting because I used to agree with you.
Okay.
I've now changed on that because, yes, on a big stage, you're absolutely right. But the big stage is in Japan in the middle of the night on television. Look, I used to wake up to watch the Toyota Cup when it was Milan and Boca Juniors and things like that years ago, right? We watched the Intercontinental Cup between the Champions League winner and the Copa Libertadores winner.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I don't think people are really doing. Your hardcore soccer fans may be recording it and watching it, but I don't think it's really going to resonate that much. I know a lot of people really think getting to that tournament, making some noise, going up and having a good showing against the Barcelona will give the league more credit or more notoriety. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it matters, and no one ever takes it around the other way either. Because what happens if you lose to the Korean champion,
right,
or the Japanese champion, or the host team, right? Then what? No one ever takes it to that. Comes up with that reasoning. Everyone goes right to and then you get to play Santos from Brazil, or you get to play it's like there are other games along the way, folks. Like you don't just automatically get a berth in the semifinals here.
Right.
Even the Mexican clubs, they tend to struggle against the South American teams and the European teams as well. So I imagine for a Montreal or Real Salt Lake, which you saw a few years ago, would really have a tough time in those matchups. Mm-hmm. And then think back to 2001, the Galaxy were supposed to go to one. They won the CONCACAF Champions Cup, which is what it was called then, mm-hmm. And they were supposed to go to the World Club Cup, and it was canceled. And that was before they sort of, readjusted it to what it is now. It took a few years to get into this point, but I'm just not sure how much it really resonates. I think most MLS teams, I don't think they care. I think that's the biggest issue is there's no prioritizing of this tournament. When a team gets to later stages, yes, MLS will change the scheduling. They will get everything sorted out. They will make sure that the teams can get rest. And I'm kind of okay with that. But when it all goes wrong, then we're stuck looking at this, right? We're looking at 5 games in hand. You are in last place. You've got a lot of ground to make up. You're going to have a lot of games in a short amount of time, and this is going to prove to be difficult, to sort of climb out of this hole. And if you're Frank Klopas, who's the head coach, you're now on the hot seat because you didn't get the trophy that you guys were planning to get or hoping to get, and now you've got to climb in and try to make a playoff spot in a conference that is much more competitive than people, give it credit for. Right. So I really think in the end, the way MLS is going to have to get there is, look, there was all this discussion about money and how much money does Club America spend on players compared to MLS, and yes, I understand all that, and money is an issue here, mm-hmm. but I don't know how an MLS team is going to get through the gauntlet of a Mexican team, and we've seen before where some teams have to face 2 and 3 Mexican clubs in the knockout stages. I just don't see, unless a Seattle or an LA decides not to rotate their squad come later in the fall. Now think about that. It's now playoff time.
Right.
It's aspect, I guess maybe the answer is MLS is just going to have to bite the bullet and change the schedule. I wouldn't necessarily want to see that because I don't think that's necessarily the answer for MLS. But when you're playing CONCACAF Champions League games at a time when MLS games are very important to get into the playoffs, and let's face it, that's where the money is made for a lot of these guys, a lot of these coaches, and that's where they're being judged on their jobs, they're going to rotate the squad. And that's why you see Bruce Arena with the Galaxy rotating his squad through Champions League and putting in backups and giving kids an opportunity. That's where we saw guys like Zardes. We saw guys like Jack McBean. This is where we see these players, and sometimes we see them and they do well, and that's great. But over the long haul, we know that it's not going to be sustainable.
Yeah.
At some point they're going to get knocked out.
Yep. And that was one of my points. And one of my co-hosts, Mike Orr, usually, I believe his point on this is, and we were talking about this a little bit the other night with the Toronto-Montreal match as they were trying to, they're qualifying now for CONCACAF Champions League at this point. But his point was that the rosters are too shallow. There's just not enough there's not enough quality on these rosters to be able to rotate through and get through these competitions. So maybe you've got your A squad that you're playing, like you said, in September and October when you're really making that playoff push. Then all of a sudden you throw a CONCACAF Champions League match into the mix, and these guys need a little bit of rest. They're 25, 27 games into the season. So what does a coach do? Coach puts out the next best player. Unfortunately, the step-off of quality from the top player that you would normally play, your A squad, to the next guy, which is your B squad, the quality is so – there's such a drastic difference in quality there that they're just not competitive. So I think maybe part of it is maybe beefing up these rosters a little bit and bringing in a little more quality so that second tier isn't such a step-off. And obviously this goes back to player development and like you said earlier, raising those contracts, raising that minimum wage in MLS so that you are attracting those better players. I think that's the way MLS. If MLS truly wants to get into this and do it right, I think it goes back to your original point about the contracts when we were talking about that. The other thing I think that I want to hit on, that something that you said quickly was. And this is something that Anto brought up last week as well, is the idea of bidding for the Club World Cup. You're right.
Yes.
If we're sitting here and the Club World Cup's being played in Japan and it's 3 a.m. and who's going to watch? Like you said, just the diehards that are going to record it or that are going to wake up at 3 a.m. to watch it. But aside from that, you're not going to get anybody really watching it. And even this year's Club World Cup with Real Madrid winning it there, you really didn't get to see those matches live, and those were in Africa. It wasn't like it was a million miles away in Australia where you'd have to see it at 4 a.m. So, I guess there should be a better TV outlet for it.
Bid for it. No, I'm all for bid for it. I'm all for bid. Look, you bid for it, you're going to team in automatically.
Right.
As the host team. But I'll tell you a dirty little secret. Mm-hmm. I'm an Inter fan. Okay, everybody knows that.
Yep.
Who's listened to BTP, right?
Yeah.
I did not wake up to watch Inter play TP Mazembe in the final of the Club World Cup in 2010? I didn't wake up to watch that because I knew it was going to be a 3-0 win, and I recorded it to watch it, but I didn't wake up to watch it live.
Right.
Because look, I had to get my sleep. I'm not going to wake up to watch a game that I know what the result is going to end up becoming, and then the next day, I watched the next day, but I didn't wake up to watch that live.
Right.
I mean, it's just a matter of, look, people have priorities in their lives, but we can't sit there and think that every little I think this is where MLS and U.S. soccer, a lot of fans get caught in this, is they sort of judge every result in a way of how much does it rise the tide of soccer in the United States. And that I don't understand how people just don't go crazy doing that type of thing. Because that would make me mad. It would just absolutely make me insane. Because it is just to do that, and we see it during national team games and World Cup games and qualifiers, where this is the way we judge it. And we do it with MLS, with Champions League, constantly. Mm-hmm. And if we did it if the team qualified for a Club World Cup, it would be just at another level of that type of intensity and that type of talk. Oh my God, they beat Swan Blue Wings, guys. What does it mean? Go. I mean. What does it mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean? And then when you talk about rotating teams and things like that, look, it's one thing for, look, and we can get to Rafa Benitez and his issues, okay? Yeah. But Rafa Benitez has a roster, has a deep roster to rotate. Barcelona has a deep roster to rotate. When Pep Guardiola's got injuries, he's got guys to go to. Okay, MLS teams are thin. I'll tell you a story. When I worked in MLS, for the Chicago Fire and for the Metro Stars years ago. When I was at the Metro Stars, I had someone at the league office come to me in the press box, and look, I was the PR director, so it wasn't a big shot necessarily. When I was in the press box, and someone comes up to me and says, "This is back in 2003," and she says to me, "What do you think about MLS teams playing in Copa Libertadores?" And I said, "Why?" She was like, "Well, don't you think it would be great? It would be a great experience, and it would be good to measure yourself up to..." I said, "Look, I love the league. I love my guys. It would be a slaughter." Like, she goes, "Don't you think it would be great to see him go to places like La Bombonera?" I was like, "You're going to..." And keep in mind, at the time, we had 18-man rosters. Rosters. Okay, not you dress 18 guys. That was your roster.
That was the full list.
Yes.
Wow.
And I said, how, with the travel and the scheduling, and how would you do that? Like, that is just physically impossible to expect these guys to go through this. And it was just one of those things where you just kind of, I just think, look, over time, absolutely, yes, when we're at that point, absolutely it should be done. That would be fantastic. It would be amazing to see that type of thing. But at this point, I don't think we're there yet. And I think if we do that, I think we're going to do more damage than we're going to do to help. And look, I said that. It was not a popular thing to say. But she understood what I said, but she thought I would be gung-ho. Hey, yeah, let's go do this. And I couldn't help but think of the players and think, you're just going to run these guys into the ground and, we're just going to get run off the field because Boca Juniors could put their backups on the field and inflict a lot of damage on you on the scoreboard.
Sure. The first image that came to mind when you said, take like the Metro Stars back in the day with an 18-man roster and go to La Bombonera to play Boca Juniors, all I could think of was following pigs into a slaughterhouse. Because that's about as close as it would get to something like that. I mean, it wouldn't even be close. And I think, especially when you're running into some of those South American stadiums that we see with the Super Classico and some of these other matches, that the atmosphere would be so foreign to those players that I think that it would be deer in headlights time. And I don't think that you're right. I don't think they would survive it, let alone the travel time and the expense of doing that and the quality of being able to play after being on a plane for 12 hours and that sort of thing. I think your answer was 100% spot on. It's just some people sometimes they just don't want to hear the truth because they don't like it.
Well, and it's good to have those things set as goals. Like, yes, we want to be at this point, and we should set a timeline. By this point, we want to get there. Look, when Don Garber says, by 2022, we want to be one of the best leagues in the world, that's great. Good. Well, now make it. Now get these owners to understand that to get from point A to point B, this is what they need to do. And as the CBA, going back to the CBA negotiations, as the reports were coming through over who was being involved and how it was coming out, and now we see what's being involved, it's like, well, how much of this is talk, or how much of it are we going to have to wait till the next CBA? Because I can't imagine to go from this CBA to the next one, there's going to be that big of a jump at the next point. Right. So if we're just going to continue this steady growth, then it's going to then just don't talk like that. Don't talk that we're going to be amongst the best. Just say the league continues to improve. We continue to strive to be amongst the best over time, and we continue to go out and look. Those are the way you handle these things. I just think they get very aggressive and they get people excited, and that's good. But then the actual the proof is in the pudding, guys. Mm-hmm. And right now when I see the CBA and I see these things, I just don't see where it really is going to help them get to where they want to be. And another aspect of it that came out, and I talked about it a little bit on Twitter with a few people during the draft, the MLS draft, is I want to see more scouting. I don't see enough scouts. I don't see guys on these teams that are out there scouting for talent around the world. You hear about coaches who go overseas. There aren't really scouting departments on teams. Some teams may have one or two guys, but usually it's left up to the assistant coaches and the coach to handle that stuff. And in some teams, look, the owner gets involved in that stuff. So those type of scenarios, you think about how baseball teams are structured, how the NHL is structured, and you think about the scouts in baseball; they're just all over the place. And you think from the world game in soccer, these teams have scouts everywhere. All your top teams, like there are no surprises. When I hear some fans say, "Well, the player we signed for our MLS team was being looked at by EPL teams." Look, EPL teams are looking at everybody.
Right.
I mean, they've got scouts everywhere, so they've probably looked at them. But that doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't mean anything necessarily.
Right.
And that's the kind of thing I want to see continue to grow in the league, and that's where the league needs to go. It needs to have more investment, and these owners need to really take an onus to say, look, we're going to get there, and this is how we're going to get there. We're going to put more money behind this, and have a scouting department, find quality, improve the quality of play, and help, again, spur that TV contract, because otherwise we're just expanding, and look, a lot of people don't want to hear about the talent pool getting thin, but the talent pool is getting thin, and it's not because, the American player is terrible. The talent pool is getting thin by sheer numbers.
Yeah.
It's just a numbers game. That's all it is. You just continue to expand. You just have to find the players to fill those rosters. And as you continue to find those players to fill the rosters, naturally, the quality of your roster from 1 to 26, 28 is going to be the drop is going to be much more significant.
Yep. It just waters it down is what it comes down to. So,
and we've seen this in baseball and hockey, and it's happening. And the NBA totally gets hammered for that.
Yeah.
Look at some of these rosters in the NBA, and you got some absolute just look at the Knicks we're putting on the court this year.
Yeah, that was an awful product. Please. So I'm going to send you over to Rob. I do have a couple more MLS questions that pertain more to this season, but I know Rob's waiting in the wings. I know we want to talk about Europa and Champions League as well. So Rob, go ahead and take it away.
Yes, I was wondering what your opinion is on promotion and relegation in MLS. Do you believe that it's the perfect time to have it? Or do you see any pros or cons of having the system?
This is the poison topic of U.S. soccer. You can't have this topic without saying something completely wrong, whether it's right or not. There's an aspect of it where would it be nice? Yes, sure, it would be nice. It would look really cool, and you'd have that aspect. I don't think it could. I don't think the markets could handle it. I don't think the owners are interested in doing it. Perhaps if MLS gets to say 30 teams, they decide to split into two and have promotion relegation within their own structure. I cannot imagine having a league where there's no New York team or Chicago team. I wouldn't say LA because the Galaxy always finds a way, right? I have a hard time imagining TV broadcasters accepting this type of thing. I just don't see it happening. I really don't. And we've heard before where Don Garber sort of pandered to this question before, and he's kind of said, well, kind of hedged and kind of talked around it a little bit. But then we've also heard the sort of fist on the desk no that we got from Mark Abbott. And that's where when a guy like Mark Abbott, who is the guy who created the single entity structure, says it's never going to happen, that's the guy I believe that it's just not going to happen. Would I like to see it happen? Yeah, it'd be fine. But could you? What do you tell a town like Harrison, New Jersey, if the Red Bulls get relegated? Like, you have a stadium for over 20,000 seats. You got people who got jobs to work in that stadium. What happens if the Red Bulls get relegated? What do you tell the politicians? What are the people? They've got those bonds to pay for that stadium. What do you do? Those type of issues I think are never really discussed. And I think in the grand scheme of things, we talk about, it would be nice, and you look at what happens in other countries, but look, let's face facts. There's got to be a massive parachute payment, and I don't know if I really don't know, aside from your hardcore fans, if people will come out to watch the Red Bulls playing in a lower division.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely, it'd probably be special for the NASL fans and the USL ones, but definitely not for the MLS ones if they go to the lower leagues.
Right, and then I guess the other side is, let's say you were to do it within the NASL. Well, if they get promoted, and you're probably going to have like stadium requirements, and getting that up to grade over a very short amount of time would be very tough, a very difficult ask. To get that going, especially for like broadcasters, and just to make sure that they could put a game on.
Yeah, absolutely. Just making a segue out of the United States and moving towards Europe. Obviously, with this Champions League result that we had, Barcelona just absolutely flourished past Bayern Munich the other day with a sensational Messi performance. Do you believe this victory is enough to put them in the final? And if so, do you think that Barcelona will win the treble and Lionel Messi gets his Ballon d'Or?
Yeah, I think I think this was enough. I can't see Bayern Munich. If it was any other team, I would say Bayern Munich could recover, and we've seen teams come back. We've seen Barcelona come back against Milan a few years ago, right when Max Allegri on the bench at Milan. I'm sure Anto would love me talking about that game. But I can't see... What I didn't understand is Bayern continuing to press for the away goal. Limit the damage on the road. Just limit the damage. If you can get an away goal, great. But if you can limit the damage and make the second leg matter, you look at the Europa League match between Dnipro and Napoli, right? Dnipro limited the damage, got the away goal, whether it was offside or not, and now they're going back home to play Napoli in the second leg with a chance to make the final. Bayern Munich didn't do that. Now, Bayern Munich is obviously a much bigger stature club, but going into Barcelona, I think you got to have the plan. And it was a sensational match. It was great to watch, but sometimes it's just about the result. And obviously, if Neymar gets the second yellow for that, alleged dive in the box there, maybe the game obviously changes because Messi scores not 30 seconds after that incident, but Messi puts on a show. I really think this Champions League is Barcelona's to lose. I can't see whether it's Real Madrid or Juventus getting through. I just can't see them beating. I think Barcelona's playing on another level. They look excellent right now, and I have a hard time seeing anyone knocking them off, really.
Do you think if he wins the Champions League, does Lionel Messi get a Ballon d'Or?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just it's really becoming a two-horse race, isn't it? I mean, how many other? It's either him or Cristiano Ronaldo, and whoever's having that that gets that slight edge or maybe that extra trophy. So it's just Lionel Messi. They might as well just rename it the Lionel Messi Award at this point because he's putting his name on it very often.
Yeah, absolutely. And just my last question to you is, what do you think needs to be done for U.S. soccer to have a distinguished youth system in a way that could be used to possibly win a World Cup? What do you think has to be done?
I think that's a very good question because there's a lot of people who would jump on the whole reform, and Jurgen Klinsmann's reforming everything, and I'm not in that camp. I'm in the camp of this is something that takes time, and if you look at what's gone on in the United States from the time Paul Caligiuri scores against Trinidad in 1989 to qualify for the 1990 World Cup to now, this is astounding. No other country has had this rise. Okay, you could look at Korea, South Korea. You can look at Japan. They've had success, but the boom that we've had has been astounding. And sometimes it's going to plateau, and that's where we are right now. We're at this plateau where sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, and it's just going to take a little bit of time to get there. And if we continue to develop the players, MLS teams they have these academies now. They have to continue to use these academies. Look, some of these teams use these academies. They don't use them properly. You've seen these players get promoted and they're not playing games with the first team, or they're on the roster, they get loaned out, and then they vanish and they disappear. Those are cautionary tales for players. That's what they end up becoming. Because it just becomes a warning that, hey, maybe college isn't so bad because at least you get your education. But when you look at the best players we've produced, a lot of them are coming through the college system. And a lot of people will knock the college system, but it still produces good players. Because you know why? There's good coaches in the college system. They just don't turn professional. You still have good coaches at Notre Dame, at North Carolina, at Maryland, Indiana. These are top quality coaches. UCLA. This is why these teams are always in the hunt for national titles. And they find good players, they develop them, and they move them on. A lot of them end up in MLS. But what the problem with college is, these guys come out too old. That is the biggest issue. So getting them in at a younger age, that'd be huge. That's what you hope these academies can do, get these players in at a younger age. But it still comes down to the education aspect and the education mentality of our country. It is ultimately going to be a big, I don't want to say hindrance, because look, if I have a child, I'm going to value the education because I want him to be prepared for life after playing. And that's where it becomes this big sort of conundrum, because we want to be able to compete at the highest level, but you don't want these kids to sort of forsake their futures. So that's kind of an issue in the end. But really, I think, I'll tell you what, show me where there's another Landon Donovan, another Clint Dempsey, another John O'Brien, another Claudio Reyna, Eddie Pope, Carlos Bocanegra. I mean, I don't see a lot of these players coming through, so I think right now we're at this plateau level, and I don't think we're going to find what we're looking for looking overseas. I don't think some of the players that Jurgen Klinsmann's brought in is going to help us get over the hump, even over time. I think in the end, the players are going to come from within our borders. It's just a matter of finding them, locating them, having a system in place with U.S. soccer. Like I talked about scouting before with MLS, it's the same thing. There's got to be more scouts out there looking for those players, whether it's in various communities, ethnic communities, whether it's the suburbs, the cities, wherever it is. Find them, get them into the system, and help them and nurture them and move them along the way. Still, when it comes down to it, for as much as people knocked on Bradenton, the best group of players we ever had came from Bradenton. DeMarcus Beasley, Landon Donovan, and players along those lines. Even Onyewu came through the system. I mean, it's just we've done things that have actually produced good players. We don't ever turn around and give ourselves credit for it because we never actually won the World Cup, which is a much more huge undertaking than people actually give it credit for. So I really think in the end, it's just going to take some time, some patience, and if Jurgen Klinsmann is changing things, as everyone says he is, and we'll see, we'll know over time if this works, but look, I have my doubts. I think over time it's going to be the people who have been here within this structure and investing more in locating, identifying the talent. And that's what it's about. It's identifying the talent. And these MLS teams are going to have to develop the talent. But here's the other question, and you see this in England. If an MLS coach is on the hot seat, why is he going to play the younger player?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess going back to what you said, I think it's time for this country to be serious about, recruiting and scouting, especially the way they do it in high schools for like sports like basketball, baseball, hockey, etc. So that way they can compete at the highest level in the highest league and it's competition. Okay, I don't want to say the World Cup exactly, but say an Olympics, for example. So,
right, and you think back to the Olympics, right? What team got the closest that you remember? It was the 2000 team. Landon Donovan was on that team. There was Brian Dunsteth was on the team, and there were a bunch of, that was a quality team. Josh Wolf was on the team that made the semifinals. I think they lost the medal to Chile, and I think Chile had Marcelo Salas on the roster at the time. So that was a good team that had a great run. I'm sorry, it wasn't 2000. It was 2000. 2000 in Sydney. That was the team that made the run to the semifinals. When if you remember. Cameroon and Spain was for the gold medal match in that Olympics, and we don't see that quite. And last time they didn't even qualify for the Olympics, and that was a major issue. So this time Andy Herzog's got his work cut out for him. He's got to get the team there, and he's got to make sure that team's gonna compete, and because it's not going to be easy. It will not be easy, especially when you get to the knockout rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. I understand. And let's face it, I'm 17. I still got a few generations to see, hopefully, a World Cup win for my United States. So here's hoping that Klinsmann's plan is just the predecessor for future plans to come in the next couple of decades.
Oh yeah, we all hope. We're all hoping that eventually we're going to get it done.
All right. Thank you, Nico. I'm going to pass it over to Joe.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob. Nico, I'm gonna take you back over across the pond, back to Europe, because Rob got his chance to get in his beloved Barcelona. So I can't let that go without me getting in my beloved Juventus. Obviously, a big 2-1 win over Real Madrid at Juventus Stadium on last Tuesday. I saw a stat the other day on ESPN FC that said that Real Madrid is still a 65% favorite to win, to beat Juventus and move on to the final. I don't understand how it's so high when you're looking at, on the surface, you're looking at a Spanish team that needs to score a goal. Okay, they still need to score a goal. Right now, Juve's up 2-1, so they need to score a goal. Okay, and they're going to play probably the best defensive Italian team that's come out in the past 5-6 years in Italy, and arguably one of the top 5 or 6 defensive teams in the world right now. I just don't see the discrepancy or the disparity between the two teams, that Real Madrid is down a goal but a 65% favorite to win. What are your thoughts on the second matchup going back to the Bernabeu?
It's a tricky matchup. It's a very tricky matchup for Juve because the away goal, that changes the complexion. And while Juventus understandably was celebrating the victory, and look, as someone, and Anto and I at Beyond the Pitch have discussed this. I'm the Italian fan. I'm an Inter supporter, but I don't root against the Italian teams when they go into Europe. I actually want to see them do well. I like seeing the team fly the flag and actually succeed. I don't root against Juventus, but in this scenario, I have a hard time. They're going to have to put on some incredible defending in this matchup. I can't imagine that Real Madrid is going to sit back or going to play as poorly as they did in the first leg. I just think that it's going to come down to Buffon, Chiellini, Bonucci. These guys are going to have to really play well. And Juventus is going to have to find a way with Pirlo to keep control of that ball. There's a very good chance that it could end up 2-1 and we're going to extra time. But I don't think this is really in hand. And I understand Juventus' defensive statistics. I think in the end, those odds are kind of reflective in a way of where people are looking at what Serie A is compared to what Real Madrid, not La Liga, but what Real Madrid is. I think that's the perception. That's why you got the odds that way. So it's sort of Juventus kind of is capitalizing on a substandard league, whereas Real Madrid is Real Madrid, and they're amongst one of the 4 or 5 Galacticos teams, the best teams in the world, the super clubs. Whereas we understand Juventus should be in that class. A lot of people outside of outside of people like us don't necessarily agree with that. I think Juventus can really pull this out, but I think it's going to be really tense. It's going to be 90 minutes of, in some ways, defending, but they're just going to have to, especially early on. I can't imagine Real Madrid doesn't just put on an onslaught and try to get that goal, even up the tie, and all of a sudden it's now in their hands, and now it's on Juventus to come after them. If there's an early goal, as you know, what's the cliche, the first 15 minutes, if you can withstand the first 15 minutes, that just alters everything. So I think Juventus is going to be interesting to see how Allegri handles this and what kind of a lineup he puts out there, and if he goes for more of a counter-attacking style of lineup in a way to try to just realize that they're going to be coming. And Carlo Ancelotti, for sure, is going to... It's almost like if there was anyone else coaching that team, coaching Real Madrid, but it's Carlo Ancelotti, right? Who really knows these Italian teams inside and out. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. I don't know, Joe. I have a feeling you may be disappointed. I hope you're not.
I agree. I agree with a lot of the points there. First of all, Ancelotti does know what to do with an Italian side that he's facing, and I do agree that in the first 15 minutes, if there will be a certain onslaught, and it's a matter of can Juve withstand it. I see if Juve does withstand the first 15 to 20 minutes of that match, I foresee them playing a style and a structure like they did against Borussia Dortmund. A lot of solid defensive play, absorbing the pressure, absorbing it, and then countering and then doing what they can with the counter. And Juve has proven, especially against Dortmund, they proved that they can be absolutely deadly on that counter. You think about the matchup against Dortmund a couple rounds ago. They won that matchup 4-1 on aggregate, and really the one goal that Dortmund managed was a Marco Reus goal on a Chiellini slip. Yep. Otherwise, Buffon arguably wasn't even tested in the two legs. Now, granted, that was Borussia Dortmund. This is Real Madrid. But you look at the firepower that they had on that Dortmund side. That's a good team, and it's a fast team. And it's a team that can put relentless pressure on you. So I think from a Juventus standpoint, and again, I'm looking at this through black and white striped eyeglasses. So you have to take anything I say on this topic with a grain of salt. But I think that Juve has seen the style of what they're going to face in that Dortmund matchup. And because of that, are going to be prepared for it. Now, again, you throw the Ancelotti mixture or the Ancelotti part of the equation into the mix, it could get a little dicey, and that's where that first 15, 20 minutes, just to see what Ancelotti decides to do, will really dictate whether Juve can move on or not. But let me see. I guess the question is one word answer. Do we have an all Spanish final?
I don't know. My head is saying yes. My heart is saying no. Yeah. But I think we're looking at another all Spanish final. Okay. Again, I think Real Madrid will pull it out because I think all they have to do is finish 1-0. I think they can do that. For as good as Buffon is, and I still think Buffon is still amongst the best goalkeepers in the world, something can happen. There's going to be so much. I think there's going to be so much pressure coming forward for Real Madrid. I just think they're going to find a way to get the goal, whether it finishes 1-0 or 3-1 or whatever the score needs to be done. I have a feeling it's going to happen. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure on Ancelotti right now and on this team, so I think they'll kind of see it out. I would like to see Juventus sort of just represent Serie A and get to the final and sort of show people that they are a much better team. Because a lot of people, look, when the draw happened, I mean, everybody wanted Juventus, right? Right. This is the team everybody wanted. Everyone looked at it. I saw there were all kinds of memes all over Twitter about Juventus, everybody wanting them as the team. So it would be great to see them upset the apple cart here and get to the final and give Barcelona a game. But I just get the feeling that we're going to get another Real Madrid-Barcelona final, and we're going to have these teams slug it out. And, of course, I still have a hard time seeing Barcelona being stopped by anybody because the way Lionel Messi is playing right now, I don't know how you stop this guy.
Yeah, no, this title is Barca's to lose at this point. This treble is Barca's to lose at this point, I would say. But I do think that the one other factor that Juventus has in their favor is that if they do survive that first 15 to 20 minute onslaught that we all expect, you could see the crowd at the Bernabeu start to turn against their beloved Blancos. Even especially looking at whatever happens with the previous results for them. If they're coming into this in bad form, that's going to be, there really could be a turning of the tide that way where the crowd could get on them.
Yes, that's a possibility. Like I said, I think that first half will be key. Mm-hmm. More than just the 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Juventus is almost have to take it minute by minute. Just get through in pieces of the match and get to halftime. If they could get to halftime scoreless and hang on, then obviously the pressure just increases on Real Madrid. And that's when you start to wonder, okay, are they pressing much? Are they trying too much? And then do they become vulnerable? Right. That's what you want to see Juventus do. And that's where, when I look at the other leg, right? Mm-hmm. It's Bayern Munich, Barcelona in the first leg. You just look at it, you go, Bayern Munich was in the driver's seat until not just Messi took over, until they just fell apart.
Right.
If they had just kept it together, they were going after the ref, trying to get the red card to Neymar. If they just kept it together, kept discipline, they could have come out of that scoreless, even 1-0, and you go back home. It changes the entire complexion of that tie. For Juventus and Real Madrid, that away goal changes the complexion of it all. Because instead of having a 2-0 lead, now you have that away goal. It's just a dark cloud that's going to be hanging over Juventus for that entire game. Because any time a goal goes in for Real Madrid, it's just going to change. Any pre-match preparation is going to get tossed out the window. Yeah. So that's why, again, if they could just go in small chunks, get to halftime. The pressure, the further they go on, the pressure just increases on Real Madrid, and the job, while it'll be harder for Juventus, it'll be easier to get to deal with their frustrations of Real Madrid.
Right. I'm gonna take this. I've only got a couple more questions for you, and again, thank you for giving us so much time tonight. I'm gonna take them. They're both MLS questions. They were both sent over to me, so we'll close it out with MLS talk at this point. The first question that was sent to me was, obviously we're a couple months into the MLS season. So for you, what are your biggest surprises and disappointments so far in the season?
My biggest disappointment is probably wow. This is, can you give me a second here to think about it?
Yeah, definitely. I've got one surprise that I think will tie into my last question of the night that I could possibly, give you.
Well, here, I'll give it to you. My biggest surprise, actually, is that DC United has come back even stronger. Okay. That to me is a big surprise. I thought they would sort of start to balance out. They were really bad a couple years ago, and then they were really good last year. So I figured, somewhere in the middle, they would settle somewhere. But they're they've been towards the top of the Eastern Conference. They've looked very good. I think that has been a big surprise to me. Disappointing. I don't want to say New York City FC because they are an expansion team, but I expected them to be a little bit better. They have a lot of things going for them, a lot of good things going for them, but they haven't looked very good at all at a lot of times. Right. So I don't want to point at them. So I'd say disappointing. I probably would have to say, the thing is I have to look at a team in the East because the West is so competitive, but I got to look right now at the Galaxy. Okay. It's time for them to turn this thing around. And if they're not careful, they're going to continue to have one too many draws, one too many losses. And we're known they're a team that has had these slow starts and has sort of turned it on, but we need to see it happen. It has to start happening. And we're sort of seeing this stop-start. And we need to see a little more consistency from them. If we start to see that, they gain that momentum, then we're seeing the Galaxy that we've come to enjoy watching on the field and under Bruce Arena. And maybe we see that once Steven Gerrard is over here. Maybe that's sort of the turning point for them. And now it's a matter of just staying in the race and not falling too far behind. But as I said in one of our shows, look, there was another team in Los Angeles who won a championship last year who missed the playoffs. That's the LA Kings. They won the Stanley Cup, missed the playoffs this year, and you know what happened? Same thing. Slow start, never recovered from it.
Right. Now, my last question of the night on MLS is, assuming that Obafemi Martins and Clint Dempsey is probably the best dynamic duo of any team in MLS right now, and it's kind of hard to argue against them, especially the way Martins is playing. He was ridiculous with the 2 goals that he had the other night against NYCFC. Can Josie Altidore and Sebastian Giovinco become the next Dempsey and Martins? Do you think they have it in them to do that?
I think they do. I think the biggest challenge for all of them, and really Toronto, one of the biggest challenges, how are they going to handle losing these guys to national team duty? I'm sorry, Joe. My daughter just came down. Can you hear her in the background?
Yeah, but that's okay.
Okay.
We've all got kids. It's,
Okay. She just came down. I don't know why she's even still awake. Okay. 1, 2, 3. the biggest challenge for Toronto is how are they going to handle things with national team duty? Because I do believe Giovinco and Altidore and even Michael Bradley. That's a fantastic trio. When Toronto put this team together, I thought for sure they're going to make the playoffs. I still believe they're going to make the playoffs. But the question is, how can the depth handle losing at least two of them? Because we don't know what Giovinco, if he's going to get national league call-ups anymore. But we know Bradley and Altidore have the Gold Cup coming up. So. And then we know there'll be other friendlies along the way. And so that's a matter of how can Toronto withstand those absences? And can Giovinco exist without them? Can he I'm sorry, not just exist, can he thrive without them? And that's where we see the depth of MLS teams being tested. So but if you're going to give him a free kick, as we've seen recently, right? Yeah. You give him free kicks within 25 yards of the goal, he's probably going to give you a good chance to put you on the board.
Yeah. He's channeling his inner Pirlo when he does that,
Oh, it's some of the goals he scored have been fantastic, and he's always a player that I've liked. Even though I know a lot of people criticize him because of his stature and being flashy, but I've always enjoyed Giovinco, despite being a Juventus player.
Yeah. So Nico, tell us what's coming up in the upcoming weeks on Beyond the Pitch.
Well, Beyond the Pitch is on SiriusXM FC, so we've got the Monday, Friday, and Saturday show. So we've got those going on. So Mondays and Fridays air from I'm doing my clock conversions in my head.
9 to 11 Eastern night, because I'm a listener.
Yeah. So we got those. Then we've got the Saturday show, which is a reaction show to the games during the day, and that airs at 5 o'clock Eastern time. Mm-hmm. So that's a wonderful show to get people to call in and talk about what they just watched or previewing the MLS games for that night. SiriusXM FC has also picked up broadcasting MLS games on the weekend, so there'll be more of that going on. We also have our One World Sports Show, which is a podcast that we put out on our website that goes out usually every Wednesday or Thursday. Anto usually has that up and ready to go with varying topics. So we're always trying to touch on different topics, different football topics from around the world, and really whether it's the United States, whether it's in Asia or South America and Europe. I mean, we're all over the place, and we try to get people on who are going to give you some value and give you something to listen to and enjoy and learn something about maybe football in a place around the globe, that it's not just the hot topic. It is something that is worthy to discuss.
Right. Great. Well, thank you again for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it and love to have you back soon.
Thanks, Joe. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Good night. And that was our interview with Nico DiBenedetto from Beyond the Pitch. And again, thank you to Nico for giving us so much time and going so thoroughly through the topics. I mean, he was fantastic to interview, and he gave us a lot of great information. Mike, I want to go to you first because I want to ask you, those last two questions that he sent us were your two questions about the dynamic duo there, comparing Giovinco and Altidore to Obafemi Martins and Clint Dempsey, and then his surprise of the season so far. So what give me a reaction to both the answers.
I think Giovinco and Altidore could be a good combination, but it's going to be really hard to match Martins and Dempsey. We've never seen a duo like them in the MLS, but I'm a TFC fan, so I really hope something like that could happen over the next few years. And I really agreed with him about his CONCACAF Champions League answer. I feel the same way, that it's irrelevant, basically.
Yeah. Rob, how about you? Your reaction to what Nico had to say? I know you were part of it, part of the interview for most of the night.
Yeah. Definitely intellectual about all leagues around the world in terms of the sport. Definitely was really in depth about the question about youth development in the United States. So it was really interesting to hear what his opinions were.
I joked with my parents the other night at my daughter's first communion, and I said, we did a great interview that we were having on Monday that we were playing. I interviewed a nice Polish-Irish kid, Nico DiBenedetto. but he was fantastic, and didn't really want to back my Juve much, which, I'm a little disappointed about. But I know that our guest that's going to be calling in about a minute or two, I'm sure we'll have an opinion on it. So I was going to say, I thought we might have enough time to be able to start ripping through our league coverage a little bit, and we might actually skip it tonight and just maybe post our predictions for the upcoming matches on the Low Limit Football Twitter link and on our Facebook page, so that folks can see. We can always do that after the show, and then go ahead and post that after. So while we're waiting for Jeremy, guys, and one topic that I'm sure we can kind of get into as we're waiting for him, because I'm sure he'll be able to talk about it, is the Copa America. And I know it's not on our agenda to talk about tonight, and we're just kind of just killing a few minutes here while we're waiting for Jeremy to come on. But I don't know if you guys have seen Twitter's, I wouldn't say ablaze, but it's certainly lit up with the teams announcing their preliminary 30-man rosters. The only team that hasn't announced one yet, or I believe in one group, is Jamaica. So any thoughts to if you guys have seen any of these teams that have been announced so far? Any thoughts to them at all? Rob, I'll go to you first since you are a South American expert.
No, not a surprise for any of the teams. I've seen Brazil's, obviously. Was a surprise that Oscar was not on the team, but that was expected considering his injury, so Felipe Coutinho will be replacing him.
Yep.
For Argentina, no, nothing to complain about. Two Juventino will be on the team, Roberto Pereira and Carlos Tevez.
Yep. And both deserved, so.
Both deserved it, indeed.
Yep.
For Mike, three Manchester City players. Three. Zabaleta, Demetrius, and Sergio Aguero.
Yep.
For Barcelona, you have Lionel Messi and Javier Mascherano.
No Luis Suarez because of his suspension.
That's for Uruguay, yes.
Yep.
Yes, that's definitely a key factor. Yep. The one I am a bit intrigued is the Paraguayan list.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Well, it's a good list overall. Obviously, we have Roque Santa Cruz, Lucas Barrios, Oscar Cardoso making his return to the squad after a sabbatical for like 3 years on the squad. And I'm really surprised that there was no Federico Santander from the
from Guarani.
Guarani, yeah.
Yeah.
The top goal scorer. Well, I think second or third, tied with the top goal scorer in the competition so far. And he's been prolific in the tournament and the domestic league, so it was quite surprising not to see him on the 30-man list.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely a big
And there was some vibe on Twitter. I was talking to Jotita about it just a few hours ago, and he told me that Santander definitely should have been on that squad.
Yeah, I would say so too. I mean, he scored a big goal against Corinthians last week in the Copa Libertadores and had an assist.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, geez, I'm surprised he's not on the side. Going into this big competition, especially. I mean, and we're not talking about the final roster here. We're talking about the preliminary 30-man.
Exactly. So 7 of these players will be cut in just a little over a month.
Right. The one that I was kind of joking about with you guys was Rafa Marquez for Mexico, currently on the 30-man roster. I mean, guys, I think I played ball with him. I mean, it's just, oh my God, he's been playing forever, and God bless him if he's still in good enough shape and good enough form that he can make the Mexican side, playing defense for them. I mean, either A, it speaks extremely poorly for Mexican defense, or it speaks very highly of Rafa Marquez's abilities. So,
he can't be older than Pirlo, can he?
He's 36.
He's 36 years old. Joining us now on Low Limit Football is certainly one of the greatest guests we've ever had. And what's crazy that he's decided to come on for a third time. But I do have to correct an injustice with you, Jeremy. And I realized it tonight. So first of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How was dinner?
Good.
Good. Excellent. The injustice that I saw tonight was I was trying to shoot you a private message on Twitter from our Low Limit Football feed, and I couldn't do it because you don't follow the show.
What? Really?
I swear to you. I'm like, that can't be right. I looked at it, I'm like, no. So I went back into my own personal one, and I sent you the message there. I'm like, you can't be. But Jeremy, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't follow us just yet.
Okay.
And the reason is because we're at 298 followers. I'm waiting for somebody to follow us, and then you can be 300.
Oh.
So.
Nice. Well, I apologize for that oversight. I follow you though, don't I? You're on my.
Yeah, I sent you the messages directly from my my personal side.
There we go.
Yeah, so I'd like to ask you how the locker room was tonight. I had it here on the television, following a couple of the topics which we were planning on talking about tonight. So how did things go tonight?
Well, it was good. The conversation was good. A little more lively this week than last week. So it was. I think the topics were just better because of all the stuff that's obviously come out over the course of the last week with the Champions League and the way things went in the Champions League, and then as well with all the stuff on the weekend about Bayern Munich and Pep Guardiola and Manchester City. It certainly made for some interesting conversation, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you over to my co-host now. I know they're jonesing to talk to you, and I'm gonna basically cover whatever topics they don't. So from one Canadian to another, I'm gonna send you over to Mike Orr, and God bless both of you. So Mike, take it away.
Hi, Jeremy. It's nice to finally talk to you in person.
Oh, that's nice to talk to you, Mike.
And by the way, you don't follow me either.
Maybe this is the problem. Maybe that's why I have very few followers on Twitter, is because I don't follow enough people back. Maybe that's part of what it is. I always look at Kay Murray, who sits next to me most days, and she's got like 100,000 Twitter followers, and I have like 3. And I'm like, Kay, how do you do that? Now I know I need to start following more people.
I've actually got only one soccer football question for you, and I'm going to keep it to the end. But I know you're a die-hard curling fan, so if I was to say to you, do you remember the shot? Do you know what I'm referring to?
Well, are we talking men's or women's?
Men's.
Men's.
The shot. Perhaps the greatest shot in curling history.
You know what? I'm not sure if I do. I know the women's version of the shot because I was there.
Okay. If I said Al Hackner?
Well, yeah, Al Hackner. I mean, yeah, okay, now I know what you're talking about.
Okay. Moving on, and sticking with curling, though, who's your top 3 men's curling teams of all time, Canadian or otherwise?
Oh, my gosh. Well, obviously, because I'm from, Winnipeg, I have to go with Jeff Stoughton.
Okay.
He's on that list. I love Kevin Martin because of the fact that he used to go and break sinks when he lost. He would, he was famous for his, his tirades after losing games, and plus, most of the time, Kevin Martin was just a, smug, just, because he was such a winner. People didn't like that, and because I grew up in Alberta, so I do like him. And you know what? My third is, and this is maybe a little bit. Cheesy and cornball, but my wife's dad is probably one of the best curlers that I've ever had the chance to curl with and watch play. He's just a great skip, and he can make shots. It's unbelievable. He actually played in the Manitoba Provincial Men's Curling Championship back in the early 90s with his men's team, and they got all the way to the final. They went undefeated, got all the way to the final, and then got beat in the final.
Wow, that's pretty good. For what it's worth, I had Kevin Martin on my list.
Okay.
Glenn Howard.
Great curler. Great curler.
And only because he was such a character and I met him when I was a kid, Eddie Wernick.
Oh, the wrench.
The wrench.
The wrench.
He had his arguments with the curling federations over the years, and I used to love that.
No, that's a great list. That's a great list.
Okay, and I'll ask you the same question, women, and I already know who you're going to say number 1, but how about the other 2?
Well, I like Jennifer Jones's team. I think that they're a great team. They've gone through some changes, but they're a great team. Jill Officer, the third on that team, is actually a personal friend of mine. So I've always been a big fan of Jill. We actually worked together when I was in Winnipeg, and she's a good friend of mine, and it's great to see that team have such success. And Jennifer Jones is a really nice person as well. So it's always nice to see good people have success. Third, oh man, I don't know.
Canadian.
You know what? I don't know the third because really it's just Jennifer Jones and Sandra Schmerler for me. Those are the great teams. Both great curlers and championship teams. There's one that comes to mind, Marilyn Bodo. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, definitely. But I was thinking outside of Canada, maybe Annette Norberg.
Oh, sure. Well, yeah. There's, outside of Canada, there have been some tremendous women's teams outside of Canada.
But we're both in agreement on the late great Sandra Schmirler the curler.
Yeah, one of the nicest ladies I've ever met. I had the chance to interview her at the Canadian Olympic Curling Trials in Brandon, Manitoba, back in 1997. It was my first television job. I was working in Yorkton, Saskatchewan, and I had gone down to Brandon. It was about a 3-hour drive every day that she curled for the championships. And one night she was having a late practice. It was like 10 o'clock at night. She'd had a child just a few months earlier, and after practice, I was the only media guy hanging around after practice because I had gotten there late. And so I had asked her if I could do a quick interview with her after her practice session, and she said she could, and she had this young baby. So she had the baby in her arms. She was nice enough to do this interview with me. We made it nice and quick, but it was really great, a chance to talk to her. Really nice, very accommodating, because obviously with a new baby, you can't, you have to kind of take things into account, feeding times, that kind of thing. But she was really accommodating and very helpful, and it was great to see her enjoy such success. And there were very few people that, throughout the course of your life that are famous people, when they pass away, when they get sick, that it impacts you personally. And she's definitely one of those people that it just had a personal effect on me when she got sick, and obviously when she passed away, it was a tremendous tragedy.
Yeah, and I think it actually had an effect on the whole country. She was really popular, as you know.
Yeah, a very beloved curler, and certainly worth all the accolades, too, because of the tremendous talent that she had, not only herself, but on that team.
Yeah, I agree. Switching over to your other love now, and more hockey, and more specifically the Winnipeg Jets.
Oh, you trying to make me cry?
They made the playoffs this season, which was a huge accomplishment. They got 99 points, set a franchise record. But actually, that got you a tough matchup in the first round with the Ducks, whom you lost to 4-0. So with that in mind, let me ask you, since the Jets have 9 pending unrestricted free agents, 4 pending restricted free agents, would you like to see them make a package and move up 1 or 2 in the round, or get an experienced player?
You know what? I'm not sure, because of the fact that they're a team that have they've developed such great chemistry amongst themselves. Paul Maurice has done a great job in building that room into a group of great leaders. There are definitely some players that they conducted a survey in Winnipeg after the season was over, asking fans who they think should be moved on. And some of the names on the list were like, are you kidding me? Like, these players were players that helped this team get into the playoffs. I mean, I was in full agreement with the trade for Evander Kane. I think I don't want to say that they schooled Buffalo, but they certainly got the better of that deal in the short term with Tyler Myers coming in there. I mean, a Calder Trophy winning defenseman when he came into the NHL, and they cast him off like that. And Evander Kane, we know the type of problems that he can bring. So from a Jet standpoint, based on what we saw in Winnipeg from Evander Kane, it's nice to see him go to a team like Buffalo, who are not necessarily going to be winning the Stanley Cup anytime soon. They're a team that could be on the rise in the next couple of years, but I don't think they're going to match the rise of the Jets. I would hate to see the team broken up, but we do have some big free agents coming up. And, I mean, the big talk in Winnipeg has been, what are they going to do with Byfuglien? Because he is a guy that's going to cost them a crap load of money, and they're not sure whether or not they're going to have it, and they don't want to they don't want to break their salary cap or restrict themselves so much that they can't re-sign Byfuglien. So I think even going into this summer, Byfuglien still has, I think, another year. So I think even going into this summer, they're looking at that Byfuglien situation and going, okay, we've got this situation coming up. What can we do to improve our team without having to blow the doors off and potentially lose Byfuglien next year if he decides to explore free agency?
And what about Stafford? Should they move heaven and earth to sign him this summer?
You know what? I'd like to see him stay. I know that he wants to stay. I thought he was a great contributor down the stretch. I thought he really came in there and did the job. And I mean, this was a team that had 8 players hurt down the stretch. They go into the playoffs with 8 guys hurt. Andrew Ladd should not have even been playing with the sports hernia, but there was no way that they were keeping him out. Stafford was a guy who contributed down the stretch. I'd like to see them try to keep him if they could, I can understand if they don't, because they've got talent in the system that's coming up. I mean, Ehlers had a tremendous season in the Quebec Major Junior League. They've got Patan, who's waiting in the wings right now in the Western Hockey League Championship. Morrissey's playing with Kelowna right now against my Brandon Wheat Kings tonight, as a matter of fact. Game 3 is going to be getting underway, I think, in about an hour and a bit. So, I mean, there's enough talent in the system that they can move guys up to replace if they lose, but at the same time, you still want to be competitive next year. You've made the playoffs. You don't want to go a season and not make the playoffs next year. It's about continuing to build, and Paul Maurice said the big hurdle was getting to the playoffs, that this was the most important step that this team has taken, and obviously they want to build on that. The question is, are they going to be able to keep Stafford to sort of help push them forward, or do they let him go and bring another guy up?
Okay, thanks. And I'm going to switch over to football. I was asking the guys before the show if they had ever heard of Ralph Kruger, perhaps, and neither of them had, and I didn't know much about him either. Maybe you know a bit more about Ralph Kruger, from Winnipeg, who was one-time coach of the Edmonton Oilers and is now the chairman of the Southampton Soccer Club. Do you know anything about him?
Yes, I do, as a matter of fact. Before I came to South Florida and to work with BeIN Sports, I was working in a city outside of Winnipeg as a news director at a radio station in a town called Steinbach, Manitoba. That is where Ralph Kruger is from. When Kruger signed with Southampton, I immediately messaged the people that I know still that work in that newsroom in Steinbach and saying, hey, you guys may not have heard about this, but this is a local story for you guys. This guy was a one-time coach of the Edmonton Oilers and is now completely switching gears and going and working with Southampton. Kruger was instrumental in Canada winning a gold medal at the last Olympics. After he was fired by the Oilers, he became a scout for Team Canada and scouted pretty much every game in Europe and gave Canada full scouting reports on every team that they would face at the Olympics. His contribution to what happened with Team Canada at the last Olympics cannot be understated. He was a tremendous asset to Team Canada. He certainly knows hockey. To see him go to soccer was a real surprise because he's a hockey guy. But business is business, and they figure that Kruger's a guy who can certainly help Southampton Football Club. It's hard to argue at the beginning of the season when you see Southampton and Coleman's tweeting out pictures of an empty pitch saying we've lost all of our players, and then to see how competitive Southampton were able to be for a good portion of the season, you have to think that, you have to kind of maybe give Kruger the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he actually does know a little bit about what he's doing, and maybe he can be somebody that certainly helps this team move forward and move up.
And he's been spending a lot of time at the World Hockey Championships in Zurich this week. Did you know his son was on the German national team?
Oh, I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, the only reason I know is because there was a big spread on him in the Toronto Sun this weekend. And yeah, he's been flying back and forth between games in Southampton and to Zurich for the World Hockey Championships.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So he's obviously still maintaining his ties with hockey. You can't not. It's one of those things that you just do. But I mean, to see Southampton, they were a team that spent a good portion of the season inside the top 4. I mean, I think they've dropped out. I think, what are they, 6th or 7th now, maybe 8th or something now? But I mean, what a tremendous season for them to have.
Yeah, outstanding. And their youth academies, if it's the best in the Premier League for sure, and one of the best in Europe, I'd say.
Well, I remember going into the season too. I mean, when we were kind of looking at the Premier League, a lot of people were saying Southampton, relegation candidate. They don't have any players. What are they going to be able to do? Like, is this a sinking ship for Coleman? And obviously, the pundits were all completely wrong. And Southampton have had themselves a great season this year.
They really have. I've really enjoyed talking to you, Jeremy, and I just want to get your thoughts on one more thing before I hand you over to Rob. I'm sure you heard Dwayne DiRosario officially announced his retirement over the weekend. And I was wondering if you have any thoughts on D-Ro and where you do rank him as a player in Canadian soccer history.
Oh, well, you know what? I heard this story. I heard this story over the course of the weekend, and we actually talked a little bit about it. The first part of the locker room tonight. I mentioned it off the top, and just let me start by saying, Mike, it's been great to talk to you too. I really appreciate the conversation, and as much as I love to talk about soccer and football, I really also love to talk about curling and hockey. So I certainly appreciate those questions. When it comes to D-Ro, I think that D-Ro is easily the greatest Canadian soccer player that we've produced in a very, very, very long time, if not the best ever. He leads the Canadian national team, men's national team, in goals. He's the highest scorer to ever play for Toronto FC. He's a guy who, with Houston, he was a tremendous leader and a tremendous captain. He won 4 MLS Cup titles, MLS MVP in 2011, a guy who was certainly a competitor. You know, he had the great celebration, but also off the pitch, a guy that is one of the nicest gentlemen I've ever had the chance, to deal with when I was working at Fox, working on Fox Soccer Report, and we were covering MLS. I used to do a segment every week on Major League Soccer on the show, and as part of that, it was a lot of interviews and phone interviews and clips and getting to travel and cover MLS, do sideline reporting and stuff like that. Every time that I had the chance to talk to Dwayne DiRosario, he really took the time. He wasn't one of these guys who kind of did it because he had to do it and then blew you off and was gone. Dero knew who I was. He watched the report, so he knew the show. He knew who I was. He knew that I was Canadian. And so we kind of had that instantly, that connection. But just to talk to him, outside of a microphone and a camera, he's just a tremendous guy, a family man, somebody who loves the game, very passionate about it. And for me, personally, I think that DiRosario goes down as not only one of the greatest Canadian players ever, but one of the best in MLS. And you think that if MLS ever comes to a point where they've got an MLS Soccer Hall of Fame, DiRosario is going to be a name that's going to have to be in it at some point. Talking with Ian Joy tonight, Ian Joy on the locker room played against DiRosario when he was at Houston, and Ian was at Salt Lake. When they played, he said playing against DiRosario was certainly not easy. And when we talked about it before the show, he also commented saying that he was a tremendous leader, a tremendous competitor, and just a guy you always had to keep an eye on because you knew that just out of the blue, if you gave him that space, he could kill you. And he certainly did that. And as sad as it is for football to see Dero hang it up, he's 36 years old. When you hit your 30s, especially you get to your mid-30s, the talent level starts to really drop as it starts to take more of a toll on the body. I understand he's going to be working with Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, which I think is going to be a nice fit for him, certainly because he'll be involved with what's going on at Toronto FC. So I'm really happy for him. I actually tweeted Dero earlier in the day congratulating him, and he favorited it and retweeted it. So obviously he saw it, and that was really nice, and a great Canadian and someone that the country can certainly be proud of. Sad day to see him retire, but I wish him all the best in the things that he's going to be doing next.
Thanks a lot, Jeremy. I echo everything you said about Dero there, and I'm going to hand you over to Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
From one Canadian to another American. Jeremy, it's nice to have you on the show again.
Thanks.
I guess my first question to you is to talk about your beloved Manchester United with the despair of one Sir Mike Orr. What do you think has impressed you the most or of the season so far in regards to particular players, and what hasn't impressed you so much?
Well, the list of what hasn't is longer than the list of what has. Now, I think that Manchester United are a team that's in transition still. I think that Van Gaal and the players are still, I think they're still getting used to one another, honestly, and at times we've seen it be brilliant, and at other times we've seen it be not so brilliant. Like when they lost, they just came off of 3 losses in a row going into this weekend. At times when they should be winning those games, I think that obviously, Van Persie's form has not helped things. Rooney's been great. I think Rooney's settled in now, and I think that his play has been good for a good portion of the season. I'm excited for what the future holds for Manchester United. For me, this season was all about getting into the Champions League, and I think that we can safely say that they've done that with Liverpool getting the draw this weekend versus Chelsea. So, I've been frustrated, like most fans, with what I've seen from Manchester United because you know that they're better than that. But then at other times you see the brilliance, you see the free-flowing football, the type of football that you expect to see from Manchester United, and you wonder, well, why can't you do that every game? And I think that that's a matter of just getting used to one another and getting used to Van Gaal's system. And, if you've seen any interviews with Van Gaal, he's not the easiest guy to deal with. He's not. He's arrogant. He is gruff. If you ask him a stupid question, he's going to tell you that it was a stupid question. And that's something that puts the media guys in a little bit of a state of anxiety because you're like, well, do I want to ask him that, or is he going to think it's stupid of me to ask him that? And I think that he's handled the media very well, but at the same time, I think that the media is kind of waiting for, they wait for something bad to happen so that they can kind of jump on him. At the same time, he doesn't really care because he's going to do it his way, and that's just the way that he is, the way he's always been. I think there's a lot of promise for Manchester United. I would expect that next year they will be contending for the title. I don't necessarily think that they'll win it, but I think that they'll be contending for the title. I'd love to see them do that, give Chelsea a challenge. So, I mean, for me this season, I've seen positives. I've seen probably more negatives and just frustrating negatives, and maybe that's just because they're frustrating. I'm blowing them up a little bit more. But, I mean, I am excited about what I'm seeing moving forward. I'm not sure what they're going to do this summer. I'm not really sure what they should do this summer, but, I mean, I'm excited about what the future holds for United.
Yeah, going back to that Louis van Gaal comment, I would assume the media is like that as well for one Jose Mourinho.
Yeah, well, but Mourinho, like, he's so skilled. You know, he's just so skilled at handling. When I watch Mourinho press conferences, I often want to stand up and clap when he's done, because he's so brilliant. He just has them in the palm of his hand, and he knows exactly what to tell them. He knows exactly what not to tell them, and they just eat it out of his hand. And it's his second season. He's won the Premier League. You know, they got knocked out of the Champions League early, so that was a bit of a blow. But the season's still been a success. Chelsea, he wants to build Chelsea like Manchester United was under Ferguson, a team that is constantly competing and constantly winning titles. And I think Abramovich has bought into it. The third year is always the year when Mourinho kind of wears out his welcome. So I'm going to be very interested to see how things go at Chelsea. But it seems like it's a different Mourinho. But when it comes to the media, even when he was there before, he had the meeting out of his hands, and he still does now, coming back.
Speaking about the summer activity that Manchester United have, obviously they signed a couple of days ago Memphis Depay from PSV. What do you think about him? Have you seen any of videos of him? Or
most of the stuff that I saw with Memphis, and I'll be perfectly honest, most of the stuff I saw with Memphis was from last summer's World Cup, and I wasn't overly impressed with him. I was not blown away by Memphis Depay. He's a guy that has tremendous talent. I mean, he's been compared with Cristiano Ronaldo in terms of the talent that he has, but he's a guy that will be there for part of the game, and then he'll disappear for a large portion of the game, or he'll disappear for games at a time. So, I mean, when I saw him last summer at the World Cup, I was impressed with him at times, but other times you need that consistency. Guys like Cristiano Ronaldo, guys like Lionel Messi, you know, great players are great all of the time, or they are striving to be great all of the time. You can see the frustration when it's not going their way. With Memphis Depay, I haven't seen that. And that might just be an age thing. He's a young kid. Maybe there's some maturity that's needed there, and maybe somebody needs to maybe stoke the competitive fire a bit with him. Coming to Manchester United, you know, Louis van Gaal is certainly going to do that because he's a national team manager. So, I mean, he already knows the talent that he possesses. So I trust in Van Gaal. If Van Gaal thinks Depay is a guy that can come in and do the job, then I would trust on that. The question I have is, what does it mean for Van Persie? Does it mean that Van Persie's out the door, that Memphis is replacing him, or are they going to find a way to coexist in a different kind of system? That's the question I have.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll definitely be interesting to see what he can be able to achieve at Manchester United. Switching gears to Spain now. Obviously, Barcelona beat Bayern Munich in the Champions League 3-0 in the first leg in the homecoming of Pep Guardiola. And will be playing their second leg tomorrow in Munich. Do you believe that they will be able to achieve this? And also, do you believe this weekend they will win the league by beating Atletico Madrid and even the Copa del Rey for a possible treble?
Well, right now the whole thing is up in the air because of the strike situation. The Spanish Federation, this whole situation, it's really strange because it's a confusing situation because in Spain you've got three different things. You've got the Spanish Federation, you've got La Liga, and you've got the Players Association. So La Liga has come out with a new TV rights deal that they want to implement. The Players Association and the Spanish Federation are not in agreement with it, and so they're threatening strike action. If the strike action ends up going ahead, it's going to wipe out the last two games of the season, plus the Copa del Rey final, which means that as of today, if the league was to end today, Barcelona are the champions. Even if they play the 2 weeks, I would not be surprised if Barcelona were able to lock up the title. The revenge mission this coming week, if the game goes ahead against Atletico Madrid, is a tremendous one, and you know what's going to be on Barca's mind. Last year, Atletico won the league versus Barcelona in that last game of the season. Thought that Barcelona were going to get it done versus Atletico. They didn't, and it was Atletico Madrid that won the title. This year, it's reversed. Barcelona can claim the title with a win over Atletico, and you know that they're going to go for it. And I don't know if Atletico have it to stop Barcelona. I mean, you're looking at parking the bus and maybe a train and another bus, because the way that Messi, Suarez, and Neymar are playing, I am not even sure that if you park the bus that you're going to be able to stop them from scoring. Bayern Munich are in real trouble, down 3 goals to Barcelona. Now, the last time that Barcelona went to Munich in Europe, they got smashed 4-0, which would be enough to put Bayern into the final. But the problem is, Bayern Munich are not going to be able to stop Barcelona from scoring, even in the second leg in Munich. So this could end up being a 6-7, 8-0 type of result, or 8-1 or 8-2, but not in Bayern Munich's favor. This Barcelona team, I haven't seen a team play like this since the days of Pep Guardiola. A tremendous team. I'd certainly put money on them to win the treble, for sure, because the way that they're playing right now, and it's such a contrast because at the beginning of the season, first half of the season, we're talking about Luis Enrique. Is he the right guy? Is this triumvirate going to fit? You know, what's wrong with Barcelona? They can't defend the set pieces. Now, I mean, they haven't allowed a goal in 7 games in all competitions, 25 scored, 0 against. Bravo's got 5 clean sheets. Ter Stegen's got 2. I mean, this is a team that's hitting on all cylinders at the right time. Phil Shane made a great point on the locker room tonight in that if we do see a Clásico Champions League final between Barcelona and Real Madrid, if Real can overcome Juventus, if we see the Clásico final, Real Madrid have more room to improve than Barcelona do. Barcelona are at their peak right now. So Phil makes a great point in saying that if Real Madrid can boost their level and get back up to the way that they were playing in the first half of the season, he thinks that they're a team that can cause Barcelona problems and possibly beat them. But of all the teams that are out there right now, he sees, and I don't disagree with him, that Real Madrid are the only team that could beat Barcelona the way that they're playing right now.
Do you believe if Barcelona do indeed win the treble, that this side is indeed better than the one that won the treble in 2009? That was such a good team. It's really... I mean, when you look at those front 3, you have to say they're at least level, because it's just they're such a powerful squad, and the way that Messi's been dropping back to play more of to take the ball more in the midfield, taking command of sort of what's been going on. I think that is what sort of separates this team from that team, and the fact that they're just in love with one another and the way that they're playing. It's so great to see. I would think that you would at least put them on par. I think that they need to do a little bit more to be considered better than that team when you look at the grand scope of that particular team. Yeah, absolutely. And as a fellow Culé, it would definitely be amazing to see them win another treble in my lifetime.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I'm not a huge... I mean, for me, I prefer Real Madrid over Barcelona, but that's not to say that I don't give the respect to Barcelona. They are a tremendous team, tremendously talented, and, I mean, like I said, they are hitting on all cylinders right now. I would like to see Real Madrid win the league myself, but at the same time, the way Barcelona are playing, I just don't see it happening. This is a great team, and a year from now, we might be talking about this team being perhaps one of the best Barcelona teams ever. If they continue to evolve the way that they are, Pep Guardiola is going to be Pep who, and Luis Enrique is going to be the guy, because the job that he has done under the pressure and the shadow that Pep Guardiola has cast, I think it's not being talked about enough how Luis Enrique has been able to take this team to the level that they're at and possibly beyond based on what the comparison that's being made to him and Pep Guardiola and the length of that shadow that he has to live up to.
Yes, absolutely, especially since he was in that shadow as his assistant back many years ago. Thank you, Jeremy. I'm going to pass it over to Joe.
Thanks, Rob. Jeremy, it was funny because usually when I prepare for these interviews, I don't write down specific exact questions. I write down more or less comments or topics and then kind of go with the flow. And as I'm sitting here listening, you answering Rob and Mike's questions, I'm crossing topics off my list. He got that one. He got that one. I'm like, guys, stop. I need to ask some questions. So, one thing that Rob didn't ask about, and I want to go back to Memphis Depay and that particular line is, you had mentioned that it was probably going to spell, or you're going to wonder what's going to happen to Robin Van Persie. I've heard a lot of people talking about not necessarily Van Persie's situation at that point, but actually Adnan Januzaj's situation, where I guess where and again, I'm like you, the only bits and pieces I've seen of Depay is in the World Cup, and although he was, I would say, moderately impressive, he wasn't like the best player for that Dutch side. Really, I mean, it was Arjen Robben and everybody else was kind of a role player, except for the one goal that Van Persie scored that everyone likes to talk about. So, I think he had a good World Cup. I don't think he had a great World Cup, but a lot of people are really, like you said, putting this kid up on a pedestal. What does it mean for Adnan Januzaj? And then I'm going to ask you about a couple of other Man United guys as well.
Well, for Adnan Januzaj, I mean, that's a great point too. But he's so young and he's so talented that I can't see Van Gaal doing anything other than giving him a chance, unless there's an attitude problem or there's just something that him not being the right fit. Van Persie, I mean, let's be honest, he's getting up there. The production when you're in your 30s starts to drop, and I think that if I had to pick one or the other, I mean, Van Persie is Van Gaal's guy because, I mean, obviously the national team coach, so they have that connection and they are countrymen together. So I mention Van Persie because of the fact that he's getting up there in the years. For Januzaj, I mean, I'd be surprised if they did anything other than keep him. Really, I mean, I think that there's still a ton of potential there. I think that there's still a ton of work that needs to be done with him as a player in terms of his evolution, and I think that Van Gaal is a guy that can certainly help him with that. The problem with every young footballer is minutes, right? Every young footballer needs minutes. If you're not getting the minutes, then you end up in the shop window and you end up having to fight for minutes everywhere else. And the way that football is nowadays, I mean, if you're a young talent, you come out there, you play well, you do well, and then all of a sudden you spend half a season on the bench, and when you do come in, you're not that impressive, then all of a sudden the reputation for you changes. Then you don't find yourself at the likes of Manchester United, then you find yourselves at the likes of Crystal Palace maybe, or something, trying to resurrect your career. I don't think that Januzaj is a guy that's anywhere near that as of yet. There's still tremendous talent there. But, I mean, the acquisition of Depay could impact, what it means for him. But like I said, if Depay's a guy who's fading in and out of games, then Januzaj is maybe a good guy that gets, a guy that will get his chance to come in and maybe impress Van Gaal. But he's got to take the opportunity. And we're talking still about, I mean, he's a 20-year-old guy. They're both young guys. Maybe Van Gaal's looking at this as like, this is the future for our attack force. These two guys, and that's not a bad-looking attack force when you look at the talent that the two of them have.
No, it's true. It's true. There are two guys, though, that I guess I wouldn't call them necessarily young, but certainly talented that are currently sitting in the shop window and not being utilized much, and that's Angel Di Maria and Radamel Falcao. What are your thoughts on those guys, especially Falcao, who is, if my memory serves, is on a loan deal where they could probably send him back to Monaco. What are your thoughts on where those two guys will land coming next year?
I'll be surprised if they keep Falcao. I mean, his price is like $45 million, and I think that there's no way that Manchester United are going to pay that money for Falcao, especially with the production, the limited production that they've gotten out of him. I mean, we're talking about like 5 goals this year. Not good enough when you're playing at Manchester United. If Monaco was to say drop the price by half, maybe they cut the price in half, then I think maybe United might take a look at it. But at the price tag that's currently attached to him, there is no way that Falcao will be playing in Manchester for Manchester United next season. Maybe City might be interested in him. I don't particularly know. For Di Maria, I mean, this is one of Ray Hudson's guys. Like, I can't. Either he's struggling with the adjustment to English football, or he's struggling with the adjustment to Louis van Gaal, or he's struggling with both. And that definitely could be the case. there could be an adjustment period that's needed there, that maybe it's going to take a season. We often talk about players that go to Real Madrid and Barcelona. They need a season to get acclimated. Maybe the same thing is with Di Maria. He needs some time to get used to the culture and the system and his coach, the way that they need him to play. Ray Hudson loves Di Maria. I love Di Maria. I mean, the guy was tremendous at the World Cup. I can't see them doing anything with Di Maria except keeping him and trying to get better with him next season.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a guy like Di Maria, when you really look back at the World Cup, I think the reason Argentina loses that final is because they're missing Di Maria in that on that side going into that match, or else I think it's a totally different ballgame.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, as far as Falcao goes, if the current price tag on his head is $45 million and Monaco dropped it to, let's say, $25 million, I think you're going to see a lot of teams line up to go for, who is technically still a proven goal scorer at what would be, somewhat of a bargain basement price there. We look at guys like Balotelli went for $16 million, and although people still hate the deal, at this point in the season, of course, they still viewed Balotelli as kind of a steal there. He just never ended up catching on. I think the expectations for Balotelli at Liverpool were, now we're using you to replace Luis Suarez, so go score us 40 goals, which just was not realistic. There's only one Luis Suarez in the world. But I think a guy like Falcao could turn around and go somewhere, especially as somewhere that would have like a two-striker system, and possibly turn in a 15-goal, even a 20-goal season and start to work his way back into the limelight, don't you think?
You know what? I don't see. I mean, Falcao's 29 years old. I don't see him. I can't see him turning in 20 goals in a season. Certainly not in England. Not the way that they play there. I mean, yeah. Could he be a cut price guy? A guy you could certainly take a flyer on? Of course, because the potential's there. But for me personally, I'm a "what have you done for me lately" guy. Like I get that the values are inflated anyways. He's not worth $45 million if he's not scoring at least probably 10, 15 goals. There's no way near that he's worth anywhere near that. I mean, he's got to be doing at least 20 goals a season. And is he worth a flyer? Sure he is, but he's getting up there. He's 29. As I said, 29 years old. The drop off starts at 30, certainly in your late 20s. The good thing for him is that maybe there's not as many miles on those legs. He might be able to squeeze, but he's got to be in the right system. And he's a guy who relies on confidence. He has to be confident. So he needs a manager that's going to build him up, that's going to make him feel 10 feet tall and bulletproof. Van Gaal, not that guy. Not that guy. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Falcao. As I said, I don't think he'll be at United, but it'll be interesting to see where he lands. You mentioned Balotelli. There's a Crystal Palace guy if I ever saw one.
Yeah.
Jeremy, can I just interject for a second? When you say City might want him, I want you to clarify. You mean Stoke City, right?
Norwich City, maybe. There we go.
Even better.
Yeah.
Man. So I'm gonna turn it over to the Champions League. This is where I'd cut Rob off because you guys were starting to go down the Real Madrid path, and I'm like, no, because Rob's a Barca guy, but I'm a Juve guy. So I wanted my crack at the Juve questions. And I just saw Matteo Benetti tweet a minute ago that he made a bet with a guy at work that Juventus will go through to the Champions League final. Pogba's back. Madrid look porous in the back versus Valencia. It'll be a thriller. Obviously we've got an exciting second leg here. We've got the fact that we have an Italian side who is probably one of the best defensive sides in the world right now, going into a game where they have a lead. And albeit the slimmest of leads, but they do have that lead. But you do have on the other side of the ledger, you have high-flying Real Madrid, Cristiano Ronaldo, James Rodriguez is starting to play much better. I'm not sure if Karim Benzema is back yet for this one or not. They have the solid midfield play with Toni Kroos. I don't think they'll have Luka Modric. But they, against Valencia this weekend, Mateo's right. They did look porous, and they had to come back from 2 goals down to try to draw the match. What do you see happening on Wednesday between those two sides? It's really kind of, rock and hard place kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, the game is at the Bernabeu, so that's at least 1 goal back. So we're looking at a 2-2 aggregate there, and then it'll have to be decided late. The the thing that could decide it is, what does Allegri do? What do Juventus do? Do they sit back and wait for their moment, or do they attack? They are an attacking team. They have the attacking mentality. They're going to attack. The other side of that is, how do Real Madrid respond to that? Real Madrid, yes, not playing well right now. The front three can't. Those guys, like Gareth Bale, had a good game at the weekend. He needed a good game at the weekend after what happened in the Champions League last week. But I don't necessarily think that there's a lot of good cohesion that's going on there with them. Does Chicharito play the whole game? Benzema's probably going to come back. He went through full training for another session today, which is good. Toni Kroos only made it through half the session, so there's still a question about whether he's going to come on, and if he does, do you start him because he's probably not going to last the whole game, or do you put him on the bench and bring him in a little bit later? I see this tie possibly going into added extra time, because I think that they could be evenly matched. I would love to see Juventus go through to the Champions League final. The only problem is they will get smashed by Barcelona if they do. And that's the sad part, is that really whoever goes to the Champions League final, the bookmakers are not going to be giving them good odds to overtake Barcelona, especially if Barcelona come out and do another 3-4-0 on Bayern Munich in the second leg. So I can see either team going through. I'd love to see Juventus go through, because I think it's a great story for Italian football. It's a great story for Juve, considering that they've been dominant in Italian football for 4 or 5 years now. It would be nice to see them get to the Champions League final and not be that Lyon side that won 7 Ligue 1 titles but couldn't get anywhere in the Champions League. It's great to win all those league titles, but you have to translate it into Europe. It's nice to see Juve being able to do that. I would love to see them do that for Italian football. It would be a great story for Serie A, but at the same time, it's not going to be easy to get past Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. And sometimes, and I said this off camera tonight, we were talking about Bayern Munich, though, in this regard. Sometimes a wounded animal is the most dangerous kind, because you just don't know what they're going to do. Bayern Munich are a wounded animal. Real Madrid are a wounded animal. Casillas getting on the fans at the weekend. He was mouthing off to the fans after they were booing after that first goal and then the second goal that he gave up to Valencia. So, I mean, there's some friction there. It'll be interesting to see how the Bernabeu reacts to this team, because if Juventus get the early goal and Madrid are having to fight back again, I think that crowd turns on Real Madrid, and then it's basically smooth sailing for Juventus. This is going to be a great tie between these two teams, and really flip a coin, because either one of them, in my mind, could go through.
You brought up a good point, and it's something that I brought up with Nico DiBenedetto earlier, is, Juventus can almost play this minute by minute, but the longer they keep Real Madrid off that scoreboard, the more you have to worry about that Bernabeu crowd starting to turn against Real Madrid, and making it even a tougher road to hoe for them moving forward in the match.
And that's that psychological thing that is, I think that's one of the key differences between Real Madrid and Barcelona. Madrid fans are fickle. Barca fans they have high expectations as well. But Real Madrid fans will turn on you like that. Like what happened with Gareth Bale, right? He won them the Copa last year, won them the Champions League, and now the guy is vilified by Madrid fans because of the way that he's playing. The psychological aspect of how that could affect this whole team, mentally and psychologically, I don't think that this team is strong enough to withstand the Bernabeu turning on them. I think that it's something that not a lot of people are talking about, but I think it's something that could be a key aspect of this game. If the crowd turns on Real Madrid, if Juventus get that early goal, or if Juventus hold them off and they start to get frustrated, that frustration is going to tell more, and that's right into Juventus's hands. I think that it's a great point that if Juventus come out, hold off Real Madrid for 70, 75 minutes, the frustration is going to show, not just from the stands, but in the team as well. That frustration is going to make its way to those players. You're going to see Cristiano Ronaldo gesticulating as usual, Gareth Bale gesticulating, missing things that they shouldn't be missing, and that is when Juventus will possibly strike and hurt them.
I'm actually hoping that this becomes the Paul Pogba coming out party, where he gets on a stage with Cristiano and actually outplays Cristiano. I know in the end it'll mean $100 million into Juve's pockets and Paul Pogba playing probably for Los Blancos, but it might come with a potential treble for the Juventini moving forward. So it's
well.
Go ahead.
Let me just say this. We heard, I think we had it as a topic matter in the locker room tonight, but we heard late this afternoon, Barcelona have submitted to Juventus an $89 million bid for Pogba.
Yep, I saw that. It was I actually saw that run on the bottom line of the locker room as you guys were talking about it, and he wouldn't join the team, I think, according to the graphic, until 2016, 2017.
Yeah, it's not for another season.
Yeah, it's because of the transfer ban. So everybody's got their hat in the ring on this one. We talked about PSG last week. Possibly offering 80-something million to Juve. We've got Man City offering almost 100 million. Also with the promise that Pep Guardiola is coming over to them. Now we've got Barca possibly offering 80-90 million. I guess we're waiting on the Real Madrid offer, right?
Oh yeah, and you talk about transfer windows. What about this? What if Juve sell Pogba, get the 100 million for him, and bring in someone like Falcao?
Yeah, well, the talk is actually, from what I've heard, it's actually not Falcao that they would bring in. It's Edison Cavani.
No, that wouldn't be a bad fit either. With Tevez?
Yeah.
Come on. That would be great.
Oh, and Tevez is, I don't know what they've put in the water for Carlos Tevez, but whatever it is, I'm glad they put it in there because he has been a man on fire. Him and Alvaro Morata. Look at Morata scoring that first goal against his old Madrid side last week. Yeah, that was, you could imagine a kid like that. Now we're talking about another 20-year-old. Although people don't really talk too much about Alvaro Morata, but he's another fantastic footballer.
Well, he's got a chip on his shoulder, certainly against Real Madrid. So here's what you're giving up. Tevez, for me, I hear people talk about the along the lines of what you said, like what's in the water. What have they done with Tevez to get him this? You know what? When he was at Manchester United, that guy is a fighter. That guy is a warrior, and I've loved him ever since he was with Boca. Mm-hmm. Boca Juniors, because he was the same way. And what I see from Carlos Tevez, I've seen all along. He's a fighter, and I am never surprised to see him score the goals that he scores. And the work rate that he has, even at United he had that work rate. And, I see people discovering him now and going, this guy is such a great player. He's been a great player for a long time, and his work rate is just tremendous. And that's one of the things, I don't really have a dog in the fight in terms of what goes on in Serie A, but I really do like Juventus. I like what they've done with their team, with their stadium as an organization. I think that they're a good organization, post Calciopoli, obviously. But with Tevez, he's always been a great player and somebody who I would certainly not shy away from putting onto my team. If somebody was to come to me and say, hey, do you want Carlos Tevez? I'd be like, done.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to switch gears with you, Jeremy, because I have just a couple more quick questions, and we'll let you go. And again, thank you for your time tonight. Heading over to the Copa America, we've seen a flurry on Twitter tonight of these teams releasing their provisional 30-man rosters for the tournament, which starts in 30 days. What do you expect out of the Copa America this year, and are you going to get to go to South America to cover it?
I can tell you I'm probably not going to South America to cover it. The way that things are sort of lining up right now for us at BeIN Sports, we're going to have a lot of moving parts, and I think that based on what I'm told, I'm going to be needed here to do some of the show responsibilities here, because we're going to be obviously as the official broadcaster of the Copa here in North America. We're going to have a lot of things going on in Chile and a lot of things here, but I think here's going to be where most of it is like the command center. So I think they're going to need me here to do that kind of thing. Not that I wouldn't go to Chile. I would certainly love to go to Chile, but remember, it's winter there and it's cold. In Miami, it's summer and hot. So I would
live.
Yeah, I could get my winter clothes out again if I was to go to Chile. But from the standpoint of the Copa America, I'm expecting this tournament to be. When you look at who's in it, you're talking about Brazil. They've got something to prove after what happened at the World Cup last year. They've been playing great under Dunga, so you'd have to think they are certainly a favorite. Argentina, Lionel Messi's never won a major tournament in his time with Argentina, and I think that this could be the one. The host team, I don't know if they've got. I think they'll get through obviously and get to the knockout stage, possibly maybe to the semifinals. Well, I wouldn't be surprised to go to the semifinals actually. But are they better than Argentina or Brazil? I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think they'll have a good run at it. But for me, it's Argentina and Brazil.
I just want to throw a third team in the mix because not enough people are talking about them, and to me, they're scary good, is Colombia.
Yeah, Colombia are a team that's, like, you talk about the top 4 teams of the tournament, you're talking Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, and, I mean, you have to talk about Chile because of the fact they're the host team.
Sure. How about anything on Paraguay? I know Rob is probably waiting with bated breath.
Well, Paraguay, I mean, it would be nice to see them maybe upset the odds a bit and you know, make a bit of a dent. But, I mean, I don't, you know, Paraguay are a team that I just don't see them. I don't see them making a huge dent at this tournament. They're in a decent group. They've got Argentina, Jamaica, Uruguay is in that group as well. I mean, Uruguay are the holders for the Copa, so I mean, it would be, you know, that's not necessarily an easy group, but I think that Paraguay, they could negotiate it, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them finish third in that group. Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, and then Jamaica.
Yeah. It's certainly going to be a great tournament, and you guys are definitely, you know, doing a great job with the coverage as well. And we're getting, what I'm enjoying is the commercials with the little previews of each team as we move forward. I think I saw tonight they just debuted George's commercial with Jamaica.
Yes, and those, you know what, shooting those was actually quite fun because we went to Lockhart Stadium in Fort Lauderdale to shoot those, and right next to the stadium is a private airport. Oh. So we're there shooting. We all have our schedule, our call sheets where we're supposed to be in Fort Lauderdale. So you go and we start shooting the promos, and there's a plane taking off, so we have to stop. So, okay, let's start again. Plane, stop. So the promos actually took probably twice or 3 times as long as they should take because of the fact that they had the private airport next door. And what happened is early that morning, as is wont to do in southern Florida, there was an early morning rain and thunderstorm. So all the planes were grounded. So then it was all backed up. So when we start shooting the promos, all of a sudden all these planes are taking off because they're all backed up because they've had to wait until the storm passed. So that was a fun and interesting day, that's for sure. Those promos were great. We all really enjoyed doing them because it's something a little bit different. It's outside of the studio. You know, we're not standing in the studio doing those kind of promos. It's nice to get out and do those kind of things in the field. And you know, our promotions department did a great job. They made us look pretty good.
Definitely, and they're great commercials. Like I said, they give you a nice little 30-second snippet on each country's side and what they bring to the table. So. They've certainly been enjoyable. So,
do you know who is going to Chile, Jeremy?
Who?
No, do you know who?
No, asking.
Do I know who is going to Chile? Andres Cordero, I think, is going. Right. He's going to the one-handed man going there. He's got a cast on his hand. He broke his hand playing soccer last week. He landed awkwardly and broke a bone in his hand, so you'll see him on all the shows with a cast on for the next 8 weeks, and that includes when he gets to Chile. He's still going to have the cast on. I think he's going. Most of our Spanish contingent on our BeIN Sports on Espanol, they will be broadcasting from Chile. So most of our personalities on the Spanish side are going over to Chile. The way that we're kind of working it is I don't really know what our show schedule is right now, but I mean, you know, you have to think with live games, we'll have pregame, postgame, that kind of thing, and there may be some other shows that are around it. They're still finalizing some of the details and some of the assignments, so we're not really 100% sure who's going where, but I mean, I think from what I understand, right now on the English side, I think Dre Cordero is one of the names that's popped up as going to Chile.
Okay. And I was going to ask you about Dre's hand. I have noticed about 2 weeks now that he's had about a week or two that he's had the cast on there. It was smart that they did a black cast so that you have to kind of look twice before you actually see it, and it kind of matches with his jacket.
Well, and I feel bad for the guy because he can't play video games. He's a big video game guy. Him and Benetti are big video game guys, and they play FIFA constantly. Dre is the guy who takes Barcelona B and gets them promoted and then wins everything with them. He's a builder. He loves to build these teams and make them winners and get these young talents and turn them into stars. That's the kind of game that he likes to play. But I was talking to him today. I said, you haven't been able to play video games. How have you been doing? It's kind of withdrawal. And he says, well, I've been playing Civilization because all I need is a mouse for that.
Yeah.
So he says, I've just been playing Civilization. So I'm getting my video game fix in. It's just not the video games that I would want to play.
Good for him. Well, we're hoping, if you pass it along, we're hoping he feels better soon. And tell him those old guys, you got to stop playing soccer.
Well, and Dre's a guy who plays once a week, and when he doesn't play, he gets owly when he doesn't play. So, I mean, for us, we're kind of like, damn, he's not going to be able to play for 8 weeks. He's going to be a surly bear at work. And so it's so we're kind of trying to make sure that we're treating him well and bringing him stuff and trying to make sure that he's properly hydrated and taken care of and that kind of thing, so that we don't have to suffer the wrath of him not being able to play.
For me, I had stopped playing for a little while, and I was like that. I was a surly bear playing once a week, and not playing after playing once a week. But the problem with trying to start up again after you stop is everything is just miserably sore on you. I'm still sore after playing yesterday, and that's the other surly, miserable part. My wife actually told me I need to retire. So that's what I got. But
nice.
But Jeremy, thank you again for coming on and giving us your time, especially after a long day at the office there. I do have one idea and a request. Back to as we started with the following of the Twitter feed. What you can do is, and I didn't know about this, you can ask Terry Lee to be our 299, and then you can be the 300.
There we go.
And
there we go.
I didn't know the two of you were married.
Yes, 10 years, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
This coming summer, we've been married for 10 years. She's in New York right now. She's at the Upfronts for they do the presentation in the spring every year for the advertisers, and so. She's up there in New York City for the Upfronts, but I know that she had said that there was a request to do an interview with her, and she is certainly interested in doing it. She doesn't do a lot of media, but she's certainly, she knows I've been on the podcast obviously a number of times, so she knows that you guys are at least friendly. Yeah. So I will certainly pass along to her to get her to follow you guys, and then I will follow her and get the glory of 300.
That a boy. Great. Again, Jeremy, thank you again for joining us. We always love having you on. You're one of our best guests, and we're definitely going to have you back again soon.
No problem, guys. No problem. I appreciate it very much coming on and being able to chat with you guys. It's been great.
You betcha. Have a good night.
Thanks. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.
The great Jeremy St. Louis. Mike, go ahead. You react first as the Canadian.
I love Jeremy. That was a great interview, and something a little different to chat to him about than soccer, so I hope I didn't upset too many people.
I think he was kind of shocked by it a little bit. It's like all of a sudden it's like, you're asking me curling? Holy cow! So Rob, how about you? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Third time's the charm, and it's always been the charm. The 3 times that we had him on.
I'm just tweeting out to him right now. But yeah, he's a fantastic guest. And we do love having him. So, guys, obviously we've got a little bit of ground to cover. I normally like to try and close this out by 9 o'clock so that we can do the SoundCloud archive, but I know we're beyond that number tonight. So, what I'm going to do, Rob, is I'm going to throw it over to you just to give us a taste of La Liga, basically what happened in our featured match of the week. We'll rip through like we did last week, where we'll just give the featured match of the week, maybe some tables, anything else that you might want to chit chat about, and then we'll rip through the leagues in 5 minutes. So, Rob, it's your turn.
All right, just let me load up my league. And our featured match of the week was Real Madrid against Valencia, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it was. We predicted a 1-1 result. We got a 2-2 result.
Mm-hmm. So, the right result. Just the
one less goal
line, but yeah, one less goal.
Hey, and I guess as the table stands, given that hopefully we still have the league this weekend, Barcelona are top of the table with 90 points. Real Madrid second with 86. In third, Atletico Madrid with 77. Fourth, Valencia with 73. Fifth, Sevilla with 70. Sixth, Villarreal with 57. Special mention to Eibar, who are currently in the relegation zone. Tied in the relegation zone, actually, by 3 teams with 31 points.
Well, hopefully they'll be able to work their way out.
Yep. And our match, and the week ahead match will be featured in shortly.
You bet. Going to Ligue 1, I just want to mention that we had predicted last week the Evian-Reims match, which we had predicted a 1-1 draw, and we had Reims winning that one 3-2. Goals in this one by Ngog in the 40th and 64th minute, and Mukanjo in the 86th to win it for Reims. Sunu and Duhamel scoring for Evian in that match as well. Just statistical information on this one actually is unavailable at the moment, so we'll kind of skip that over. So just looking at the Ligue 1 tables, quickly, we saw that Lyon lost this week, and Paris Saint-Germain won by a 6-0 score against Guingamp. So we're looking at a probable PSG win. They need one more point to secure it. They are 6 points ahead with 2 to play, but I believe Lyon holds the difference in the head-to-head. But PSG 77 points, Lyon in second on 71, Monaco on 65 points, Marseille in the last Europa League position at the moment on 63 points, but they are tied with Saint-Etienne on 63 points. So it's gonna be interesting to see which one of those 3 teams, Monaco, Marseille, and Saint-Etienne, which one gets eliminated with 2 matches to play, because there are 3 teams separated by 2 points. Bordeaux on 59 points, Montpellier on 56, Lille on 53, Rennes on 50 points, and Bastia on 46 points, tied with Guingamp, rounding out the top 10. Bottom of the table, Lens relegated, 26 points. Metz officially relegated this weekend on 30 points. Evian on 37 in the last relegation position. Just outside Reims on 41. Then we have a host of teams on 42 points, including Toulouse, Nice, Lorient, and Caen. Nantes on 44 points, rounding out the bottom of the table. Goal-scoring leaders in this one right now, Alexander Lacazette on 27 goals, Andre Gignac on 20 goals, Ibrahimovic on 19, Cavani on 16, Beauvau from Guingamp on 15, Max Gradel on 13, tied with Roland from Bordeaux. Jordan Ayew from Lorient on 12 goals, tied with Fekir and Yedder. Fekir from Lyon and Yedder on Toulouse. So, featured match of the week coming up in a few minutes. Rob, back to you for the Bundesliga.
Yep, in Deutschland, we have, obviously, our winner of the league is going to be Bayern Munich for a 4th consecutive time. Top of the table is Bayern Munich with 76. And our featured match that we predicted, it was Mönchengladbach-Leverkusen. We predicted a 2-1 victory for Leverkusen. It ended up to be completely wrong, and it was 3-0 for Borussia Mönchengladbach.
Mönchengladbach really on a roll lately.
Yes, absolutely. They've all 6 of their last games, they've gone unbeaten.
Mm-hmm.
So, second place, Wolfsburg with 65. Borussia Mönchengladbach actually catching up to them with 63 points. In 4th, we have Bayer Leverkusen with 58. In 5th, Augsburg with 46. 6th, Schalke with 45. Especially want to mention to Dortmund, who are 2 points from a European spot in 7th. And our match of the week will be featured in the week ahead.
All right, taking it over to Italy. Our match of the week was Lazio-Inter. We had predicted in this one a 3-1 Lazio victory, and we blew this one as well, gentlemen. We did not have a good week. Inter 2-1 over 9-man Lazio in this one. We had actually 2 red cards. Mauricio in the 24th minute and Marchetti in the 61st minute. And actually, I think the Marchetti one was a little bit of a questionable call. We had Candreva opening the scoring for Lazio in the 8th minute. Then Hernandez tying it up 1-1 in the 26th minute. And Mauro Icardi missing a penalty in the 63rd minute on the Marchetti red card. But Hernandez scoring in the 84th minute to win this one for Internazionale. Shots on this one, 14-11 in favor of Inter, 7-6 on target in favor of Inter. Inter holding 69% of the possession, which would be expected of a team going down 2 men. So looking at the tables quickly again, and I actually have missed my tables here. Here they are. Juventus, again, have locked it up a long time ago, 80 points. Roma in second place on 64. Lazio in the last Champions League position, which is the Champions League qualifier position, on 63 points. 3 points back are Napoli on 60, Fiorentina on 55, and then 1 point outside of the Europa position is Sampdoria on 54 points. Inter in 7th, really, guys, hard charging. 4 winners of 4 of their last 6, 4 wins and 2 draws. They're on 52 points. Wondering if they have enough time to be able to catch Fiorentina or Sampdoria in this one. Genoa on 50 points, Torino on 48, and AC Milan in 10th place on 46 points. Propping up the bottom of the table, we have we have Parma, relegated Parma on... and I lost one of my co-hosts here. We have Parma on 17 points, Cesena on 24, Cagliari on 28. Oh, okay, Rob. So we lost Rob, it looks like.
No.
Nope. And Mike, are you there?
I am.
Okay, good. All right, sorry about that. So let me start the bottom of the table again. Sorry for the confusion. Parma relegated 17 points. Cesena relegated 24 points. Cagliari relegated on 28 points. Actually, I'm sorry. No, they have not been officially relegated yet. Atalanta outside the zone on 36 points. Sassuolo on 40. Empoli on 41. Verona on 41. Udinese on 41 points. Chievo on 42. And Palermo rounding out the bottom 10 on 43 points. Match of the week coming up in a few minutes. Mike, over to you, sir.
Okay, our match of the week was Chelsea and Liverpool. I predicted Chelsea 2, Liverpool 0. The actual score was Chelsea 1, Liverpool 1. John Terry scored for Chelsea, and outgoing legend Steven Gerrard scores for Liverpool. The stats in this one were 8 shots for Chelsea with 3 on goal. Liverpool had an amazing 15 shots, only 4 on goal. There was 4 yellows for Chelsea, 3 yellows for Liverpool, no red cards. That was the game. Looking at the table now, Chelsea has won the Premier League, of course. Manchester City still in second, followed by Arsenal, who has a game in hand. And Manchester United with the last Champions League spot on 68 points, bottom of the table in 20th, and relegated is QPR. Also relegated is Burnley. In 18th and close to relegation is Hull. Newcastle is also in the relegation fight still in 17th place. And Sunderland is in 16th place. Both Newcastle and Sunderland have 16 points. And in 15th place is Leicester. I think that's it.
All right. How about the MLS? Take us back over to this country.
Okay, the MLS. What was our prediction for that game?
That was it was
New York City FC to win 1-0, and again another one wrong this week as New York Red Bulls won.
Mike, did I lose you? Oh, we might have lost Mike there for a second. It looks like we might have a bad connection. Like Mike had said, we had predicted a NYCFC 1-0 victory. And we ended up with a Red Bull victory of 2-1, 10-man Red Bull. Rob, do I still have you?
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Okay, good. So we're just having trouble with Mike's connection here for some reason. Hopefully, Mike, did we get you back? Oh, it looks like we did not get Mike back yet. So let's see if
3 for New York City FC, about 1 red card. For who got that red card for the Red Bulls? That was Mike
Mazzicant.
Mike Mazzicant.
Yeah.
And I should have remembered that because who has him in the pool?
You do.
I have him in the pool. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Mike, we lost you there for a second, but because we all watched the game, I was able to cover what you were saying until you came right back. Unless I've lost you again. He's having some serious trouble tonight. Let me see if we can get him back on here in a second. And I do want to get him back on because at this point it's going to be, it's going to be basically. Yeah, we're having trouble with him. Rob, I still have you, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so apparently we're having some trouble with his connection here, for some reason. But it looks like everything else is connected properly, so it's got to be on Mike's end.
I'm back.
Oh, there you are.
I'm not sure who sent it on. My connection's perfect, but. I'm back.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, you've been fading in and out on us for some reason. Yeah, that's okay. It's okay because we're professionals. We can roll with it, right?
Yeah, I guess it's these 3-hour plus shows. Maybe the Skype just does not liking it.
The 3-hour mark and the Skype cuts.
But I think I finished up with saying, of course, I have Mazzicant in the pool. So
yes,
way to go.
And
thank you, Mike.
We did get that in as well. So
or Matt, I think it actually is.
Matt Miazga, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks,
Rob, do you want to give us a quick rundown of the scores for Libertadores from this week?
Yes, I will. Just give me 1 second. I think obviously I can mention from prior knowledge. In the Copa Libertadores, we had the first leg of the Boca River match.
That's right.
In La Monumental, a 1-0 result for River Plate puts them as they take the first leg from an 81-minute penalty. Obviously, a soft penalty. Don't you agree, Joe?
Yeah, that was definitely a soft penalty. There's no doubt about it. I don't know what happened there, but yeah, it was definitely a soft penalty. Rob, I still have you, right?
Yes, you do. You're fine.
Yeah, because I was going to say, Mike, we lost Mike again.
Anyway, yeah. Carlos Sanchez with a penalty in the 81st minute was able to give River Plate the first leg win. It will now go to the Bombonera on Thursday in effort to see who qualifies, and that's definitely going to be an amazing atmosphere.
Absolutely.
Blood will be shed now. Definitely.
It will be worth watching, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I have the rest of the scores if you want to do them.
Yeah, absolutely. Their first qualifier from the round of 16 to the quarterfinals are Tigres of Mexico, who were able to win in the altitude and draw in Mexico with a 3-2 win aggregate. Atlético Mineiro with a 2-2 draw over Inter of Porto Alegre. They will now travel to Porto Alegre to play the second leg. A shock win in Paraguay as Guarani with a 2-0 victory over Corinthians. The Corinthians, as Sam Kelly said the last week, as one of the favorites for the entire tournament.
Yes.
And now they're getting a shock 2 win in Paraguay, and will now be really under pressure as they go to São Paulo on Wednesday in order to reverse that tie. Mm-hmm. So it'll definitely be a sight to see. And I've just spoken to Ralph Hanna a couple hours ago. He said he will be in attendance for that match.
Oh, excellent. So he's going to get a good one, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Racing, a 1-1 draw in Montevideo against Montevideo Wanderers in Uruguay. They will be looking to reverse that draw on Thursday. Estudiantes de La Plata with a 2-1 victory over Santa Fe of Colombia in La Plata. They'll be going to Bogota now in a quite a hard atmosphere to play in Colombia, especially in Bogota. So it will definitely be interesting to see. Amalek, another shock win, 2-0 over Atlético Nacional in Ecuador, as they now look to go to Colombia and hope to reverse that tie as well.
Yep.
And the final match, Sao Paulo with a 1-0 victory over Cruzeiro in Sao Paulo. They will now be going to the Mineirão, home of the Germany 7-1 result, as they look to reverse the tie in order to go to the quarterfinals.
All right. Just going into our Champions League and Europa League information quickly. Obviously, we have the two big matches that we've talked about ad nauseum with Bayern Munich and Barcelona tomorrow in Munich. And on Wednesday, we have Real Madrid Juventus in Madrid, Spain. So I think as a consensus, as a group, and Mike, I still have you there, right? Rob, I have you.
Yeah, I'm back.
Yeah,
I'm back now.
Good. Okay. I think as a consensus, we're all pretty much on the Barcelona train that they're going to move through. I don't want to talk about the Juventus Real Madrid one just yet because we'll talk about them in a minute. I think that one's a little bit more up in the air. In the Europa League, last week we had a couple of results. We had Napoli drawing Dnipro 1-1 on a very, very controversial goal for Dnipro. And Sevilla really putting it to Fiorentina 3-0 at home, heading to Florence for the second leg of that match. So Sevilla certainly look like they're in the driver's seat to make the final. The Napoli-Dnipro one is definitely up in the air, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But that's it, gentlemen. Other than that, we've got our week ahead, and we've got our trivia answer. So let's start our week ahead with our matches and predictions, and then we'll go to the trivia answer, which I've come up with a couple of more names as we were chit-chatting all night. So, Rob, La Liga.
La Liga. In our La Liga week ahead match, we have Atletico Madrid hosting Barcelona in the definitive match of La Liga. Mm-hmm. A win for Barcelona would put them top of the table and be officially proclaimed winners of La Liga. As a self-proclaimed Kool-Aid, I think they're going to do it. I think they have the chance to beat this Atletico Madrid squad. It will be tough to win over there at the Calderón, but I think it's going to be done. 2-1.
2-1 Barca. I would definitely agree with that result. So, moving over to Ligue 1, we've got Lyon and Bordeaux as our match of the week, our featured match of the week. Again, for the most part, everything in France has been somewhat decided. So we chose this one as a matchup of two top teams in the league, Lyon in second, Bordeaux in sixth. Lyon losing their last match, which was 3-0 to Caen. But in this particular head-to-head, they've won 3 of the recent 6 matches, including a 5-0 victory in Bordeaux on December. I'm going to take Lyon to come off the snide on this one and win. They are at home. I'm going to take Lyon with a 2-0 victory in this one. I think they should be able to hold off Roland, Diabate, and Bordeaux in general. So I'm going to throw it back to you, Rob, for the Bundesliga prediction.
We have Stuttgart and Hamburg in a relegation battle on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. It's going to be definitely a tough one for both sides, but I think the side from Hamburg will be able to do the job done. 1-0.
1-0 Hamburg. Okay. So let's go over back to Italy, where our match of the week is certainly an exciting one. We have Sampdoria-Lazio. Again, we're talking about this Lazio side that has faltered in the past couple of weeks, especially with the 2-1 loss to Inter, albeit that they were shorthanded. And we look at a Sampdoria side who has also been sputtering a little bit, but currently trying to fight to get into that Europa position. This particular match is at Sampdoria. I've got to think Lazio gets off the slide here. I think they're going to win this one, so I'm going to take Lazio in a 2-1 victory, and really put some pressure both on Samp and on Roma. Samp to get into the Europa League, and on Roma to hold that solid Champions League spot. So, Mike, if you are with us, I want to throw you over to you for the EPL match.
Sunday at 11 a.m., Manchester United versus Arsenal. I guess it's kind of a battle for that last guaranteed Champions League spot, and I am going to take Manchester United 2-1 over.
Wow, 2-1 over Arsenal. That's going to probably be the best match of the week. How about bringing it back to the States? Or Mike, have I lost you? I think we've lost Mike again. Mike's having some serious issues tonight with his Skype. So you know what? Let's leave it. So if we get Mike back here in a second, he'll be able to give us his prediction. Rob, I'm going to throw it back over to you. Mike,
I'm back. I guess that's a sign we better get this show over with. Manchester United 2, Arsenal 1.
Got that one. How about MLS?
1-1.
1-1. Who's going to win?
Vancouver, Seattle, 1-1. Saturday, 7 p.m.
Fair enough. All right, Rob, I'm going to give it to you for the Copa Libertadores match this week.
2-1 Boca.
2-1 Boca. Boca advancing over River in that one.
That's what I have.
All right, Rob, you're the Barca guy, so Mike, you give me the Bayern Munich Real Madrid. I'm sorry, Bayern Munich Barca matchup.
1-1.
1-1. And since I'm the Juve fan, Rob, go ahead. Real Madrid, Juve.
Juve.
What's the score?
1-1.
Oh, from your mouth to God's ears.
1-0 Real Madrid.
Bite your tongue. I'm not even writing that down. Why can't your Skype crap out now? Dnipro Napoli, gentlemen. Anybody want to offer a guess?
1-0 Dnipro. And you had that backwards. It's in Dnipro, right?
Yes, it's in Dnipro. I have it backwards on our.
You tried to fool me. You had me on Napoli until I realized that it's not there. 1-0 Dnipro.
1-0 Dnipro. So Dnipro moving through to the Europa League final.
Yeah, no Italian teams.
All right.
Sorry, Joe.
All right, and then the Fiorentina Sevilla match. Rob, I'll go to you on that one then.
Sevilla 2-0.
Sevilla 2-0. So we're gonna have So basically, because I'm not agreeing with you, Mike, and I'm not writing down your damn prediction, we're gonna have a Barca. We're gonna have a Barca Juventus final, which means Rob. Actually, if that does happen, we already have plans for a multi-try podcast where Rob and I will actually just have to shut up and watch the game, and everyone else will talk with the Two Daft Yanks and the boys over at Year Zero Soccer. By the way, already got that in the works. If we have a Juve Barca final. And we're looking at a Dnipro Sevilla final, according to you gentlemen. And, as an Italian football supporter, I hope you're wrong. So that'll do it for our week ahead. And the other thing, I just saw that Mike flipped off again, so we're going to give it a second. One thing that I noticed, Rob, while I was looking at the schedule for the upcoming week, we have matches every single week this week. We had the Arsenal match earlier today as a Monday match. Tomorrow, obviously, we have the Barca Bayern Munich. Wednesday, we have Juve Real Madrid. Thursday, we have Boca Juniors River Plate and the two Europa League matches. On Friday, we get MLS. We get Saturday matchups that's big between Atletico and Barcelona. And then on Sunday, we get the Man United-Arsenal match, and then we're back here again to do a show on Monday. So we have literally 7 days of at least one great match every single day. I didn't look and see what the matches were on Friday for MLS. I think there is one good one. I just can't remember who it was. But we have 7 days of soccer that we get to watch, gentlemen. Seven days of good soccer. So I'm really hoping Mike gets this fixed up here in a second, because we are back on the trivia question. That's all we have left for business. So, Mike, I think we have you back now. So if we do have you back, Mike.
Okay, let's do this trivia, guys. I got to go. This connection's just terrible, so I don't know what's going on here. I think it's Skype, but I'm going in and out. So give me your answers.
5 players, 5-letter names, 100 goals. I'm going to give you Thierry Henry first.
Okay, and you got my hint there that time then, did you?
I think that was...
When I said you might have Tree?
Oh, no.
Okay.
That was a hint. Okay. I'm going to throw one more out, Rob. Carlos Tevez.
Damn it.
And that's not correct.
Oh, wow.
Go ahead, Rob. What other names you got?
No, he took both of them.
Those are the only two. I also had David Silva written down. I know that's wrong.
No David Silva.
No David Silva and no Yaya Toure, right?
Damn, this is hard now.
I got one.
5-letter word.
5 letters.
Robbie Keane?
Correct. Wow, there's one.
That's one.
Okay, so
that's
we got
two now.
It was the second. Oh, yeah, Thierry
Henry. Yeah.
Okay.
And you said Liam got him right, correct?
Who?
Liam got him right.
Liam got them all, yeah. He thought Robbie Keane would be the one you guys didn't get.
Okay.
And I thought it would be someone else you don't get.
Well, we didn't get the other 3 right now, so...
Yeah, so you still haven't got the one that I think you wouldn't have got.
5-letter word. This is Robbie Fowler?
No. That's like
6 letters.
6.
Yeah.
That's 6, sorry.
Robbie Fowler.
Yeah, Rooney's another one that's 6 letters.
Rooney's 6. Yeah. This is a 5-letter word.
Should we throw in the towel?
Can you give us... No. Give us the team he historically played for.
Mike threw in the towel.
Oh, we lost him. 5-letter word. No, I honestly don't know. I know.
And that's the thing. Every time I thought of one, it was always 6. It was always 6 letters, 6 letters, 6 letters. Like I said, Rooney, all those guys, it was always 6 letters. I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. So, and Mike's back. So,
can we give up?
Yeah, let's give up.
I'm here. I'm sure they are enjoying this on live radio.
Yeah, we got.
Did you come up with any more?
No.
Nope.
Henry.
Okay, so Thierry Henry.
Robbie Keane.
Jermaine Defoe. Robbie Keane. Dwight York. And Ryan Giggs.
Oh, my God, Giggs. Are you kidding me?
Giggs.
How close is John Terry?
I'm not sure.
Terry's not. Is Terry 5 words?
Yeah, Terry. Yeah.
He's close.
He's
not there, so he's not at 100.
All right. Closing music, gentlemen.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so it's coming up. It's queuing up here. And so for episode 73 of Low Limit Football, special thanks again to Julien Laurens for joining us, to Nico DiBenedetto for joining us. And Nico, if you're listening, I will try to get in touch with you later on tonight. To the immortal, that's I think the proper word to describe him, Jeremy St. Louis, a fantastic friend of the show, one of the biggest friends of our show, one of our very best guests. We love having him on, and thank you for joining us. Joining us next week, we are working on a few guests at the moment, so I don't want to let any tricks out or anything like that. We'll announce them as we move on. So for episode 73 of Low Limit Football, I am Joe Usello.
And I'm Roberto Rojas.
And I'm Mike Orr.
Thanks again for joining us, and good night.
Thanks for listening.